If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 81. Natsuki, what's this? Tenten curiously looked at the bean in her hand. This is a senzu, sacred bean. Think of it as a miraculous medicine bestowed by the sages. Natsuki lowered his voice and said, one senzu can keep you from feeling hungry for 10 days and instantly heal your injuries. As long as your soul isn't damaged and you haven't stopped breathing, it can bring you back to life immediately. Keep it safe. Only use it when absolutely necessary. And don't tell anyone, not even your dad. Hearing how precious it was, Tenten immediately clutched it tightly. She didn't doubt Natsuki's words. Even though it sounded unbelievable, Natsuki had never lied to her. But, Natsuki, this senzu is so valuable, you should keep some for yourself too. I think just one is enough for me. Tenten said with concern. Natsuki, however, gently pressed her hand down and smiled, don't worry, I have plenty. I value my life very much. After all, I still have to marry you one day, right? I definitely can't die. Only then did Tenten feel reassured, her face showing a hint of shyness. Although they had been together for years, talking about marriage still made her feel shy, but even more so, sweet. In the following days, Konoha village remained calm, seemingly with no special movements. Maybe Sarutobi Hiruzen was secretly sending the Anbu to investigate. Anyway, that wasn't something a mere genin like Natsuki needed to worry about. Team 9 continued taking missions as usual. As punishment for before, all the D-rank missions were handed over to Yamashiro Ron and Kato Megumi. At first, the two were a little downcast, but soon they were smiling again, because the 3 missions were, pulling weeds in a courtyard, milking cows, and looking after children. These originally boring tasks unexpectedly became heartwarming as the two kept exchanging shy glances and smiles. Just watching them, Natsuki and Aoba were overwhelmed by the sickeningly sweet atmosphere. After being exposed, these two weren't even hiding it anymore, openly showing their affection. But it didn't bother Natsuki. After all, he wasn't single. It was only Aoba, the eternal bachelor, who suffered heavy emotional damage. After a few more days of D-rank missions, Hiruzen finally arranged a C-rank mission outside the village for Team 9, simply exterminating bandits in a nearby village. The mission went smoothly. The bandits were just ordinary people, completely unable to resist against ninjas. The reason they were to be eliminated was because they had already committed terrible acts, robbing villagers, killing innocent people. For such scum, death was deserved. There was no need for mercy. It was the first time Natsuki, Ron, and Megumi had killed anyone. They felt a bit uncomfortable at first, but soon adapted. In this world, killing was inevitable. As long as they didn't become indiscriminate murderers, it was acceptable. Not everyone could be a saint like Naruto, who went through life without killing a single enemy, even those responsible for the deaths of his own parents, and still yelled things like "Don't mock his dreams." But that's another story. Team 9 quickly completed the mission and returned to the village by noon the next day. To celebrate, Yamashiro Aoba treated the 3 of them to Ichiraku ramen. They had just placed their orders when they heard a commotion behind them. Natsuki! You're eating ramen too? An excited female voice called out. The next moment, Tenten pounced onto Natsuki's back. Yesterday you said you had a mission outside the village. I didn't expect you to be back already. Your team works so fast. Aoba, Rainya, and Megumi all turned to look at the twin bun-haired girl and immediately recognized her as Natsuki's girlfriend. All of them curiously studied her. It was hard not to be curious. After all, Natsuki often talked about his girlfriend, even needing her opinion on certain things. They had long wondered what kind of girl she was. Seeing her now cute, but not particularly imposing, they realized she was quite normal. Tenten, behave yourself. Everyone's watching. Natsuki reminded gently, then introduced. The guy with sunglasses is our team leader, Yamashiro Aoba. These 2 are my teammates, Yamashiro Rainya and Kato Megumi. Everyone, this is my girlfriend, Tenten. And standing behind her are her teammates Hyuga Neji and Rock Lee. Their team leader is the strongest taijutsu ninja in Konoha, Might Guy Sensei. Guy gave a thumbs up with a dazzling smile, haha. That was a fine introduction, Natsuki-kun. I am Konoha's proud blue beast, Might Guy. Rock Lee also enthusiastically said, so you're Natsuki's teammates. Please take care of us. Even Neji nodded coldly in greeting, his attitude a bit aloof. Rainya and Megumi blinked and scanned them, a big and small kappa, referring to Guy and Lee's similar bowl cuts, and a high-class, white-eyed handsome guy. Comparatively, Tenten was the most normal one among them. The two quickly greeted back, hello. Tenten-senpai. Tenten's cheeks flushed slightly. It was her first time being called senpai like this, but she smiled graciously. Hello. Please take good care of my Natsuki. The two hurriedly waved their hands. Tenten-senpai, you're too polite. It's Natsuki-senpai who's been taking care of us. Seeing the growing number of guests, Toki quickly asked Ayam to bring more stools, and Guy's team sat down too, ordering bowls of ramen. Guy seized the opportunity to chat with Aoba. Aoba, your team looks pretty spirited. Aoba adjusted his sunglasses and said. When it comes to spirit, you're still the champion, Guy. But your students seem pretty impressive too, although, compared to our Natsuki, they're still a bit lacking. There was a slight hint of pride in his tone. Wait, so this is what Aoba-sensei is like? Unexpectedly, Guy laughed heartily. Ha ha ha. I know how amazing Natsuki is. Since our teams have met, how about a little sparring match? I'd like to see how far Natsuki has taken his mastery of the Hachiman Tongkao, 8 gates released formation. Aoba was a little surprised. He had only intended to show off Natsuki a bit, he hadn't expected Guy to suggest an actual match. But looking at Guy's team all well trained, it did seem like a good opportunity. After all, the Chunin exams were approaching. This could be a good chance for Ron and Megumi to test themselves against others. He looked at his students and asked. Guy-sensei wants our teams to have a spar. What do you think? Natsuki shrugged. I'm fine either way. I know Guy's team pretty well. Rainya and Megumi exchanged a glance and firmly replied. Sensei, let's do it. We'll definitely win. Very confident. Hopefully they wouldn't suffer too big a blow later. Rock Lee was already itching for a fight. A match with Natsuki-senpai's team? I'm looking forward to it. Neji's gaze locked onto Natsuki. He had been training hard for a year, and he wanted to see just how much distance remained between them. To defeat Natsuki was his biggest goal right now. Natsuki and Tenten exchanged a glance, both feeling that this sounded pretty fun. Chapter 82. Start on Sunday reset. After lunch, the two squads leisurely made their way toward a designated training field perfect for a post-meal walk to aid digestion. By the time they arrived, digestion was mostly done, so there would be no issue sparring. Just as everyone gathered in position, Lee stepped forward and raised his bandaged hand. Then, allow me to go first. Who among you will face me? Rainya immediately stepped out. I'll take you on. Seeing this, the others backed off, giving them space. Guy assumed the role of referee and, once the two formed the seal of confrontation, shouted, begin. Lee shot forward instantly, his speed was astonishing. Kanahasan. Leaf whirlwind. Swish. A spinning kick swept in, trailing the wind. Nice one. Rainya's eyes lit up with excitement. He raised his arm to block the spinning kick and immediately felt its heavy impact. His arms went slightly numb. That gave him a rough gauge of Lee's strength. When Lee came in again with another spinning kick, Rainya didn't block it this time. Instead, he stomped the ground and used Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique, to flash behind Lee, aiming a punch at the back of his jaw. But Lee was incredibly sharp. He tilted his head slightly, dodging the strike, and countered with a backhand. His combo of punches and palms quickly overwhelmed Rainya, pushing him into retreat. Megumi watched anxiously. She wanted to shout encouragement but was afraid to distract him. Tenten noticed and patted her on the head with a smile. Don't worry. Lee might be reckless, but he's always measured in friendly matches. He won't hurt your boyfriend. Megumi blushed and replied stiffly, he's not my boyfriend, yet. Not yet, hey? Just missing the final push. Tenten chuckled silently. On the other side, Aoba frowned deeply. That kid Rainya's taijutsu is still far too weak. What's he been training all this time? Clearly, Aoba had high expectations for his clan's younger member. He had always been strict and had personally passed on all he knew. Seeing Rainya lose in taijutsu irritated him. Natsuki spoke up to ease the mood. Aoba-sensei, don't be upset. It's not that Rainya's taijutsu is bad, it's just that Lee's is strong. After all, Guy-sensei is Konoha's top taijutsu master. It's only natural that his student is good. Of course Aoba understood that, but his own taijutsu wasn't weak either. If his student lost this badly in a match of fists, it felt like a slap to his face. Truthfully, Aoba was expecting too much. While his own skills were excellent, Rainya had only recently begun training under him. Even geniuses needed time to grow. Lee, on the other hand, had been studying under Guy for over a year. He had been grinding hard the entire time. If Lee lost in taijutsu, that would be the real embarrassment. Back in the fight, realizing he was outmatched, Rainya decisively activated his Four Demons technique, using forearms to maneuver more effectively. Shi no Jutsu, hey? Natsuki and Tenten have used that before, I know it well. Lee wasn't fazed. He simply increased his offensive tempo, and soon shattered the two extra arms behind Rainya's back. Rainya forced himself to remain calm and unleashed Scatter of 1,000 Crows, using the flock to harass Lee while he attempted to catch him off guard with Katon, Gaki no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Fireball technique. It actually did put Lee on the back foot for a bit. However, Lee eventually burst through the cloud of crows and brought Rainya down for good. Rock Lee wins. Guy announced the outcome, and the match was over. Rainya pulled a bitter face as he formed the seal of reconciliation. He couldn't even look at Megumi. In his mind, he had totally embarrassed himself in front of the girl he liked. Lee, however, extended his hand with a sincere smile. You're Rainya, right? You're strong. I look forward to our next match. Rainya was stunned, and his guilt only grew deeper. Lee's strength and mindset both surpassed his own. No wonder he lost. Taking a deep breath, he shook Lee's hand. You're the strong one, Lee. But I'll train harder next time, I won't lose again. Ah! That's the spirit of youth. Guy suddenly let out a loud sob, tears streaming down his cheeks like noodles, an utterly bizarre sight. Unexpectedly, Lee began crying too. Oh! I'm so moved. Guy-sensei, this is youth. Lee. Guy-sensei. The two green jumpsuit-clad weirdos hugged dramatically. Behind them, waves crashed against the shore in a stunning freeze-frame image, an epic backdrop that left the others cringing with second-hand embarrassment. Tenten's mouth twitched. She forced a smile. Ah, don't mind them. You'll get used to it. Rainya and Megumi immediately gave her a look of sympathy. Poor Tenten Nisan had it rough indeed. At that moment, Rainya walked over to Megumi and hung his head. Megumi, sorry, I lost. Megumi replied gently, yeah, I saw. But it's okay. You'll win next time. Let me see if you're hurt, I'll heal you. Rainya scratched his head sheepishly with a goofy grin. The two of them began flirting right in front of everyone. Seeing this, Aoba decided not to scold his cousin right now. He also recognized that the boy hadn't trained for long, he'd just need to double down on his efforts going forward. Soon, the second match began, Megumi vs Tenten. And the outcome? Unsurprising. Megumi lost quickly and decisively. That said, Megumi's strength among genin was respectable, especially now that she was beginning to learn medical ninjutsu. Calling her an excellent genin wouldn't be an overstatement. Unfortunately, her opponent was Tenten. Tenten's strength was enough to spar evenly with Neji without using her trump cards. Megumi's Sudden, water release, ninjutsu taught to her by Natsuki was completely familiar to Tenten. It was only natural that she lost. Still, Megumi didn't take it too hard. At that moment, Neji stepped forward. Natsuki, it's been almost a year. I'm glad we can fight again. Natsuki also stepped up. Looks like you've been training hard, Neji. But I haven't been standing still either. I won't be holding back this time. Then let's go all out. I want to see how far I can go against you. Neji activated his Byakugan as Guy shouted begin. And he surprisingly made the first move. Natsuki didn't hold back either. He quickly formed hand seals and pressed his palm to the ground. Doton, Dorieki. Earth release, earth-style wall. Neji skidded to a halt just in time. A wall of earth rose sharply in front of him. Had he not stopped, he would have been launched into the air completely exposed and defenseless like a sitting duck. Clearly, Neji had great control of timing. But dodging the front wall wasn't the end of it. Walls also rose to his left, right, and even above, trapping him in an earth cube, like a tiny matchbox made of stone. He was completely sealed inside. Chapter 83. Natsuki wasn't idle either. His hands flew into seals, creating two shadow clones. One leapt into the sky using Jep, Moon Step, while the other burrowed underground with Doton, Earth Release. Meanwhile, his original body rushed straight toward the matchbox-sized arena. Everyone watching was dazzled. Natsuki's movements were just too fast. From using Doton to trap Neji, to releasing two shadow clones, it all flowed like a carefully rehearsed performance, not a single moment wasted. However, while this tactic might work against others, it wasn't likely to be effective against Neji, who possessed the Byakugan, an all-seeing eye with no blind spots. He must have seen everything from inside the matchbox arena. This wasn't going to be a sneak attack at all. Hackage! 8 trigrams palm. With a bang, the earthen arena exploded. Neji stood firmly, setting his stance, ready for Natsuki's approach. But before Natsuki could get there, the shadow clone above launched several Rankyaku, Tempest Kick, slashes toward Neji, forcing him to dodge. Then, just as he evaded the air attack, the underground clone reached up to grab his ankle, prompting Neji to leap back in a hurry. But Natsuki's original body wasn't going to just stand there and watch. He had already dashed in, launching a rapid attack with Tekai Ken, Iron Body Fist. Neji had no choice but to defend himself. He had originally set up his Hakuroki Julian SH, 8 trigrams 64 palms, but Natsuki's coordinated surprise attacks from above and below completely disrupted his rhythm. Now, all he could do was deal with the fast-paced assaults, unable to execute his original plan. As expected of Natsuki, his speed is unreal. I've already fallen into his rhythm. Neji thought grimly, as his hands frantically blocked Natsuki's iron fists. The repeated impacts left his hands numb. Those fists really were like iron. Then, Natsuki suddenly shifted styles. His Tekai Ken transformed into a swift barrage of Shigen, finger gun, attacks. With his fingers hardened and sharpened, a single strike could easily pierce through flesh. Neji's defense became even more difficult. Even with chakra covering his palms, he didn't dare block directly. He had to keep retreating while also watching for attacks from the air and underground. This was why Natsuki sent clones to the sky and the ground. It severely restricted Neji's options. The crowd was stunned. Natsuki's tactic was masterful. His main body's relentless strikes were already overwhelming, and with unpredictable sneak attacks from above and below, even a Chunin would have a hard time keeping up. The fact that Neji had held out for this long was impressive. Indeed, using Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone technique, wisely could be game-changing. Unlike Naruto, who simply threw clones into the fray to get beaten up, plus his terrible taijutsu, it was no wonder he struggled so often. At this point, Neji was starting to panic. Natsuki's pressure was only increasing. At this rate, defeat was inevitable, a result he could not accept. He hadn't even forced out Natsuki's true strength yet. Grinding his teeth, Neji began to spin, and a hemispherical chakra shield formed around him. Hackish Kaden. 8 trigrams palm, rotation. Natsuki immediately ceased his assault. Even the clone in the air paused. After all, Kaden was nearly invincible defensively. Breaking through it was no simple task. But there was one flaw: the area beneath Neji's feet wasn't protected. Natsuki had discovered this during their last battle, and there was still a clone underground. The next moment, a wall of earth suddenly shot up from the ground beneath Neji's feet. Neji was launched into the air by the Doton, Dorieki, Earth Release, Earth-style wall, interrupting his spin. With Kaden forcibly broken, he was now completely exposed. The airborne clone immediately unleashed a barrage of Rankyaku, surrounding Neji in slicing winds. Neji twisted his body midair, trying his best to dodge while striking the incoming slashes with chakra-laced palms. However, Haka no Ksh, 8 trigrams empty palm, required firm footing and waist movement to maximize its power. In midair, its strength was greatly reduced. Before long, Neji hit the ground, bloodied. Before he could react, Natsuki's original body appeared behind him, pressing a kunai to his throat. "Neji, I'll take this match." With those words, Natsuki retracted the kunai and dispelled his two clones. Neji clenched his jaw in frustration, but finally took a deep breath and admitted, "I lost." He had no choice but to concede. While he had initiated the first attack, Natsuki had seized the tempo from the start. Neji hadn't even managed to use his Hakuroki Julian SH. In the end, even his supposedly impenetrable Kaden was disrupted by a sneak attack from underground. Once lifted off the ground, Kaden couldn't function at all. So it was true Kaidan did have a weakness. While it could defend against attacks from all sides, including above, it left the underside completely vulnerable. A simple earth-style jutsu could break it. He had known this from their previous match, but he still placed his trust in Kaidan, and now he paid the price. If even Kaidan could be broken, how could he not lose? What frustrates me most is, I still couldn't force you to go all out. Neji muttered. No worries. I'll be waiting. You can challenge me anytime, Natsuki replied with a small smile. He could see that Neji had changed a lot since their last fight. He no longer believed the Byakugan and Jaken were invincible. He no longer thought Kaidan was impenetrable. That was good progress. To be honest, the Hyuga clan was trapped in old traditions. For 1,000 years, they had clung to their ancestors' glory and failed to evolve, blind to the changing times. If they didn't adapt, they'd be left behind. Look at history. Through all the shinobi wars, which prominent figures emerged from the Hyuga? White Fang, the legendary Sunin, the Yellow Flash, Shisui the Teleporter. Did the Hyuga produce any of them? A decaying clan, stuck in the past. If Neji, a member of the branch family, could wake up and seek change, maybe he really could lead the Hyuga to a revival. Unfortunately, the clan's archaic main branch division only served to suppress talents like him. The Hyuga were dragging themselves into the abyss. But that wasn't Natsuki's concern. He was just reflecting, nothing more. The match was over, but it wasn't. Natsuki turned to Guy and raised a hand, smiling. Guy-sensei, how about sparring with me? Let me show you my 8 gates progress. You want to fight me? Yosh. Bring it on. Guy cracked his knuckles and entered a defensive stance, not underestimating Natsuki one bit. Natsuki took a deep breath. The next second, a surge of chakra erupted around him like a storm. Hachiman Tong Siaman, Kai. 8 gates released formation. 3rd gate, Gate of Life, open. Boom. The shockwave from the chakra burst kicked up sand and rocks, sending a powerful windstorm outward. Everyone except Yamashiro Aoba and Tenten was shocked. Neji quickly activated his Byakugan, his face tense. So this is the 8 gates. I've never seen it before. Unlocking internal limiters and forcibly releasing chakra, what terrifying power. I believe Tenten now. If just the 3rd gate can cause this kind of reaction, then if Guy-sensei really opens the death gate, he might actually kick the Rikude Sennin, 6 Paths Sage, into oblivion. Chapter 84. At that moment, Lee was trembling all over, his eyes blazing with fighting spirit. He hadn't expected Natsuki to already open the 3rd gate, and judging from how relaxed Natsuki looked, he could probably open even more gates. As expected, Guy-sensei's Hachiman Tonk, 8 gates released formation, was the strongest. Lee was more convinced than ever that even if he couldn't use ninjutsu, he could still become a mighty ninja through sheer taijutsu. Ha ha ha. This is youth. In that case, I'll join you. Hachiman Tonk, Siaman, Kai. 8 gates released formation, Gate of Life, open. Buzz. A torrent of chakra erupted around Guy too, and with a swoosh, he vanished from view. Natsuki followed, disappearing as well. All that could be seen were 2 afterimages flashing across the field at extreme speed, each collision booming like muffled thunder, the resulting shockwaves nearly uprooting the trees around them. Of course, it was still just sparring. Neither of them used their more destructive techniques. Even Omote-Renge, Front Lotus, wasn't unleashed. Guy simply used the speed and strength granted by the 3rd gate to exchange blows with Natsuki, but even that alone left the spectators deeply shaken. Half an hour later, both of them finally stopped, panting heavily. Guy wiped his sweat with satisfaction, flashing his dazzlingly white teeth. That was truly a youthful battle. Natsuki, you've already mastered the application of the 8 gates wonderfully. Your talent is impressive. Natsuki, meanwhile, let Tenten help him wipe his sweat as he replied humbly. I'm still a long way from defeating you, Guy-sensei. I have to keep working hard. Haha. To defeat Konoha's blue beast, you've still got a long way to go. No, I feel like I'm getting close. Yosh. It's good for a young man to have ambition, but don't talk big. Tell you what, the day you beat me, I'll give you my treasured green jumpsuit as a gift. Absolutely not. Tenten couldn't help but cut in. Guy-sensei, please. Natsuki absolutely cannot wear a tight green jumpsuit. My boyfriend can't turn into a kappa. Lee immediately protested. What are you talking about, Tenten? This is the symbol of youth. It's not a kappa. How can you be Guy-sensei's student and say such things? I don't care. I won't let Natsuki be assimilated by you guys. The only way to become truly strong is to be like Guy-sensei. He's the strongest. We have to follow his path. Argh. No way. Their bickering made everyone around burst into laughter. With the sparring over, of course they had to celebrate properly. Tenten, the little rich girl, generously treated everyone to a feast at Barbecue Q. Everyone was overjoyed. During the meal, however, Lee accidentally drank a cup of alcohol, sending Natsuki into a panic as he hurriedly threw him out into the street. As everyone watched in confusion, they saw Lee start drunkenly fighting, using Suiken, drunken fist. And surprisingly, he was quite good at it. Thankfully, Natsuki had tossed him out before the chaos escalated. Otherwise, a few drunken moves could have flattened the whole restaurant. Even if Tenten's family was rich, wasting money like that wasn't acceptable. Lee's drunken fist isn't bad. It's good enough to beat most Chunin, Neji commented. Yeah, but his alcohol tolerance is terrible. He's wasted after one cup. Training him in drunken fist would be a nightmare. Better not even think about it, he'd end up tearing Konoha apart. Guy quickly abandoned the idea. After all, being good at drunken fist was meaningless if the user passed out after one drink. After that hilarious mess, Guy took Lee home, and the rest of the group went their separate ways. Natsuki and Tenten, however, didn't rush home. Hand in hand, they strolled leisurely through the streets. Since they both had no missions for once, they decided to treat it like a casual date and properly relax. Unexpectedly, as they wandered, they bumped into Team 7, who were playing cards out of sheer boredom. Naruto's card addiction was still strong. He had roped Sasuke and Sakura into playing with him. They had reluctantly agreed, and actually found it rather fun, except that Naruto's terrible card skills kept making them furious. Yo! Looks like you three are pretty free, hey! Natsuki greeted them. Hey? Oh, Natsuki, Tenten, you guys are, oh, a date, right? Sakura's eyes sparkled with envy when she saw them holding hands. How she wished she could go on a hand-holding date with Sasuke. But Sasuke clearly had no interest in romance at all, much to her frustration. What she never realized was, how could someone burdened with blood-deep hatred possibly have the heart for dating? She completely failed to understand Sasuke's mindset. There was no way Sasuke would fall for her. Hey, Natsuki, Tenten. Wanna join our card game? Naruto called out cheerfully. I'll pass, Natsuki refused immediately. But what about you guys? No missions lately? Where's Kakashi-senpai? Hearing that, Naruto puffed up proudly. Hehe, Natsuki, you probably don't know yet, we just got back from a mission outside the village. And it was a B-rank mission too. B-rank? No way. The Hokage wouldn't assign such a high-level mission to fresh genin. Tenten was the first to express disbelief. It's true. I swear. We went to the Land of Waves this time. Ah, here it was the Land of Waves mission. After listening to Naruto's chaotic storytelling, Natsuki roughly pieced things together. It was more or less the same as in the original story. Even though Team 7 had all mastered tree climbing and water walking early on, their overall strength hadn't improved much. When they encountered Zabuza and Haku, the situation still unfolded nearly identically. In the end, both Zabuza and Haku died together. Such a pity. After all, many people had fallen in love with Naruto because of the emotional story between those two. Naruto's famed talk no jutsu hadn't worked. Haku had lived for Zabuza and died for him. When Haku died, Zabuza realized he could no longer live without him. Tenten listened, visibly moved, unsure what to say. Natsuki sighed. A truly beautiful and tragic love story. It's such a shame. Hey? Love? Lovers? Team 7 froze, looking confused. Sakura hesitantly raised her hand and corrected him. And Natsuki, that Haku kid, even though he was super cute, he was still a boy. He and Zabuza weren't lovers. Naruto and Sasuke both nodded vigorously, backing her up. But Natsuki had a perfectly serious expression. You guys really don't get it. Haku may have been male, but whoever said Zabuza wasn't female? Hey! Was that even possible? Wait, so Zabuza was a woman? And besides, Natsuki continued smoothly, who says two guys can't be in love? Just like Naruto and Sasuke, you two already had your first kiss with each other, right? Shut up, Natsuki. Don't bring that up. Naruto and Sasuke exploded, lunging toward Natsuki, desperate to silence him. Meanwhile, Sakura stood there stunned, her mind spiraling into chaos. Sakura. So, Naruto and Sasuke are actually in love with each other? Does that make me the third wheel? Chapter 85. Tenten looked utterly stunned. No way. You two are really, I mean, no offense. I totally respect your choice. It's not like that. Tenten, don't believe Natsuki's nonsense. Naruto and Sasuke were about to explode. They never thought Tenten would actually believe Natsuki's ridiculous claims. Sure, they had kissed, but that was purely accidental. There was no love involved. Hadn't she ever heard the phrase, "Don't spread rumors"? But at that moment, a voice even more terrifying than Natsuki's rang out. Oh my, I just arrived and already overheard such juicy news. Looks like as your teacher, I didn't truly understand you two after all. Naruto, Sasuke, I never expected this kind of relationship from you. I always thought you didn't get along, but clearly, I was wrong. Kakashi appeared on a nearby rooftop, casually delivering a bombshell that nearly made Naruto and Sasuke die on the spot. Naruto jumped up, shouting. Kakashi-sensei! Don't believe Natsuki's nonsense. It was an accident. It was just an accident, Datebao. Sasuke's face darkened. Idiot Naruto! Stop talking. This idiot was only making it worse. Now the entire world would know about their accidental kiss. Sure enough, Kakashi's eye widened in amusement. So you're admitting you really kissed? It wasn't just Natsuki making it up? Wow, the world truly is full of surprises. But don't worry, I won't discriminate against you two. It's not like that. Kakashi-sensei, please stop. Naruto and Sasuke were truly at their breaking point. Meanwhile, Sakura was still frozen in shock. At that moment, Natsuki added fuel to the fire. He pulled out a photo and first showed it to Tenten. Tenten gasped, clapping her hands over her mouth in disbelief. Then Natsuki casually handed the photo to Kakashi. Kakashi, confused, took it, and upon seeing it, his jaw dropped even further. The picture clearly captured Naruto and Sasuke's accidental kiss, perfectly timed and framed. In the background, Sakura's stunned expression was also immortalized. Natsuki grinned. This masterpiece was taken by yours truly, the ultimate photographer. The theme? Naruto and Sasuke's love story, or perhaps the beautiful moment of Team 7. Kakashi-senpai, look closely. Sakura's shocked face is also framed beautifully. Kakashi scrutinized the picture and clicked his tongue in amazement. You really caught the perfect moment. All of Team 7, frozen in time. This photo is priceless. Haha, right? I'm giving it to you, Kakashi-senpai. Consider it a treasure of Team 7. A treasure of Team 7? Excellent. I'll keep it. If any of you ever misbehave, I'll print out a giant poster and stick it all over the village for everyone to admire your youthful love. Please don't, Kakashi-sensei. X2. And so, the chaos ended with Natsuki treating everyone to Ichiraku ramen as an apology. As for the photo? Of course, it would never be destroyed. Such a precious memory of youth had to be preserved forever. At Ichiraku ramen, Team 7 devoured their bowls with gusto. Natsuki and Tenten, still full from barbecue, just sipped on drinks. Between bites, Naruto glanced up and asked. Natsuki, how do you know Kakashi-sensei, Datebao? Natsuki didn't hide it. He pointed at Tenten. Tenten's team leader, Might Guy, is friends with Kakashi-senpai. I wanted to learn from Kakashi-senpai, so I asked Guy-sensei to introduce us. Oh, I see. Naruto nodded, but then frowned suspiciously. But that's not all, right? I heard Kakashi-sensei speaks very highly of you, Datebao. There's gotta be more to it. Natsuki rolled his eyes. Mind your own business, Naruto. You should worry about yourself first. Honestly, after hearing you brag about your mission earlier, I almost lost it. Hey? The rest of Team 7 immediately looked over. Even Kakashi was intrigued. Sasuke scowled. Natsuki, are you saying we did poorly on the mission? Natsuki turned to Kakashi instead. Kakashi-senpai. Kakashi put down his empty bowl and smiled under his mask. Actually, I'd like to hear it too. Go ahead, Natsuki. Speak freely. But Naruto had already leapt to his feet. Natsuki, you're just jealous that we completed a B-rank mission, Date Bayo. We did great. Even the Hokage praised us and upgraded the mission from C rank to B rank. How could you say we did badly? Natsuki gave him a side glance. See, I haven't even said anything yet, and you're already getting defensive. With a temper like that, you think you're suited for missions? Naruto froze, unable to respond. Even Sasuke and Sakura had to nod reluctantly. In truth, Naruto's impulsive nature had caused quite a few problems during the mission. Natsuki organized his thoughts, then said. First of all, when you discovered that Tashuna was hiding the truth, that there would be enemy shinobi, you should have reconsidered. You had no intelligence on the enemy, you didn't even know what you were walking into, and yet you chose to proceed blindly. That was reckless. But you want us to just abandon Tashuna and the Land of Waves? Naruto protested, getting worked up again. Did I say anything about abandoning them? Natsuki's tone sharpened. I said you were reckless. Now shut up and listen. He continued sternly. Leaving aside Tashuna's lies, you had a duty to prioritize your comrades' safety. You should have paused the mission, returned to the Hokage, reported everything, and asked for reinforcements or a revised plan. Instead, you gambled with your lives based on sympathy. If things had gone badly, it wouldn't have been just your deaths, the whole situation could have turned into a diplomatic nightmare for Konoha. Naruto opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. In truth, after experiencing the mission firsthand, he realized just how dangerous it had been. If another team had taken it, they might not have been so lucky. Deaths would have been inevitable. Summing it up, they were lucky to have survived. Wanting to help people was noble, but charging in blindly wasn't heroism. It was stupidity. Sakura timidly raised her hand. But, the Land of Waves is really poor. Tashuna-san didn't have the money to request a higher-ranked mission. Natsuki chuckled coldly. And that justifies lying? He could have arranged a payment plan, pay later after the bridge was built and profits rolled in. You think the Hokage is some cold-hearted tyrant who would turn him away? If Tashuna had been honest, Hiruzen-sama would have absolutely sent support. Instead, Tashuna chose deception, gambling with your lives. And you even once trust your Hokage's judgment over some random drunk builder? Sakura opened her mouth, but couldn't argue. Kakashi scratched the back of his head, embarrassed. Well, to be fair, I bear responsibility too. Chapter 86. Kakashi indeed bore responsibility. He thought it was just a small matter and that with his presence, he could solve everything. Thus, recklessly continuing the mission was a dereliction of duty as a squad leader. If he had been a bit more cautious and chosen to return to the village to have the Hokage reassign the mission, perhaps the danger could have been avoided. Of course, if you look at it through the lens of conspiracy theories, there might have been schemes from Sarutobi to take action against Gat, or ulterior motives regarding the Land of Waves. But for now, Natsuki decided not to dwell on that. However, Naruto, refusing to learn his lesson, was still unconvinced. But we completed the mission, and nothing happened. Naruto said. Nothing happened? Naruto, do you even hear yourself? Natsuki narrowed his eyes and fixed his gaze on Naruto. In reality, Sasuke actually died once, didn't he? Were you not filled with despair at that moment? Wasn't Sakura crying in agony? Didn't you taste the pain of losing a comrade? Naruto and Sakura's pupils contracted. That's right. At that time, Sasuke had indeed died, his breathing had completely stopped. Naruto had been utterly helpless and desperate then, even releasing the Kaibi's chakra, and Sakura had cried her heart out. How could they have forgotten? How could they still proudly say they completed the mission excellently? Sasuke, however, stubbornly said. But I didn't die, did I? Natsuki let out a laugh, almost amused by his stubbornness. You call that not dying? That was because that boy named Haku had a kind heart and chose not to kill you. So you're telling me that your success was due to the mercy and compassion of your enemy? That's what you call completing the mission excellently? This time, the entire 7th squad fell into complete silence. Kakashi looked at his 3 wilted students and shook his head helplessly. Frankly speaking, Natsuki's point was correct. The mission at the Land of Waves was not something to be proud of, instead, it deserved deep reflection. If that boy named Haku hadn't shown mercy, what they would have brought back would have been Sasuke's corpse. Would they still be able to laugh then? Natsuki concluded. Naruto, you're reckless and impulsive. Your strength is insufficient, yet you still lack calmness. Sasuke, you easily become arrogant, thinking you're invincible after a little progress. Sakura, what exactly did you do during the mission? What role did you play? Thus, if I were to rate your performance during the Land of Waves mission, it would be unqualified. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all lowered their heads without refuting. Even the foolhardy Naruto understood now. And precisely because they understood, they felt even more dejected, ashamed of their previous arrogance. What outstanding accomplishment of a B-rank mission! It was simply a disgrace. Seeing this, Natsuki turned and apologized to Kakashi. Sorry, Kakashi-senpai, did I speak too harshly? Kakashi waved his hand dismissively. No, it's fine. What you said made a lot of sense. These little guys really were getting a bit too full of themselves, your words came at the right time to make them reflect. Hearing this, Natsuki said no more. He simply couldn't stand seeing Naruto acting so smug, and he had to knock him down a notch. Honestly, in the early stages of the original story, Naruto was truly useless, boasting big, being unreliable, impulsive enough to ruin things. Only his talk no jutsu was effective, everything else was frankly unbearable to watch. If you didn't discipline him a little, he would think he was truly exceptional, oblivious to the importance of learning from failures. Thus, after venting his frustration, Natsuki felt greatly relieved. At that moment, Naruto's voice, full of grievance, broke the silence. Kakashi-sensei, did we really perform that badly? Sasuke and Sakura also looked at Kakashi, longing to hear their teacher's evaluation. Even though they understood Natsuki's words were correct, they still wished for Kakashi's confirmation. Kakashi scratched his head awkwardly. Well, you still have a lot of room for improvement. In other words, their teacher also acknowledged Natsuki's opinion. For a moment, the atmosphere of the 7th squad became even gloomier. However, Sasuke suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. Natsuki, fight me. You want to fight me? Natsuki was surprised. He had thought Sasuke might say something else, but challenging him was unexpected. Upon thinking about it, though, it made sense. Sasuke wasn't like Naruto, who liked to talk big, he preferred to prove things through combat. Thus, Naruto had never been able to convince Sasuke because he simply couldn't beat him. Sasuke stared directly at Natsuki and said, "You might be right with your words, but talking alone doesn't prove anything. I lost to you in our final battle before graduation, and now I'll win it back. I'll prove that I'm stronger than you, and that your words don't apply to me." Good, this was very much like Sasuke. Even if logic didn't win, as long as he was stronger, he was the logic. As long as he was strong enough, whether the Land of Waves mission was right or wrong would be for him to decide, not for others to judge. Natsuki understood Sasuke's thoughts and agreed with a smile. All right, let's have a match. Just in time, I also have something I want to ask Kakashi-senpai about. Let's do it together. Kakashi blinked, guessing that Natsuki wanted to consult about the Hotaki Kenjutsu, Hotaki sword style, and didn't refuse. Fine, I'll act as the referee. Let's head to the training grounds. Soon, the group arrived at the training ground. Sasuke and Natsuki faced each other and made the seal of confrontation, waiting for Kakashi's command. Begin. Sasuke immediately acted, throwing several kunai at Natsuki. Natsuki sidestepped casually, easily dodging them. But Sasuke then threw shuriken, making them collide with the kunai midair and changing their trajectory to arc toward Natsuki. Nice. Sasuke-kun, you're amazing. Sakura couldn't help but cheer. Tenten didn't think it was anything amazing, it was just basic ninja tool throwing. Natsuki didn't even move from his spot. In a flash, his hands shot out, effortlessly catching all the incoming kunai and shuriken, and casually tucked them into his ninja tool pouch. Since he had accepted the challenge, collecting some interest was fair, right? However, he still commented. Sasuke, I know the Uchiha's throwing techniques are impressive, but this level won't do. Bring out your real skills, like opening your Sharingan. Sasuke took a deep breath, and red light flashed in his eyes. Sure enough, he activated his Sharingan one tomo in one eye, 2 tomo in the other, asymmetrically. Still, Sasuke's aura changed dramatically. Then let me show you the true power of the Sharingan. Sasuke dashed forward, aiming a punch at Natsuki's head. But Natsuki's figure suddenly blurred. He disappeared in an instant. In the next second, he reappeared below Sasuke, delivering a fierce upward kick to Sasuke's chin, launching him into the air. Sasuke was shocked. Why? I clearly saw your movements. Natsuki kindly explained. The Sharingan is amazing, it can see my moves clearly. But your body can't keep up. You're too slow. As he spoke, he delivered 2 more kicks in midair, sending Sasuke flying just like he had done back at the academy. Chapter 87. Seeing Natsuki so effortlessly knock Sasuke flying, both Naruto and Sakura were utterly shocked. Although Natsuki had beaten Sasuke once before graduation, back then Natsuki had used quite a few tricks, including single-handed seals and Suten, water release, techniques, to catch Sasuke off guard. But now, Sasuke had also grown significantly. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have been defeated so easily. Had Natsuki become way too strong? You guys don't really know the real Natsuki, Kakashi said rare words. Back at the academy, he deliberately hid his true strength. Even when he beat Sasuke, he wasn't using his full power. He didn't enjoy playing house at school. Instead, he was already fighting real battles outside with real shinobi. While you were still playing around at the academy, he had already defeated a genius from the Hyuga clan and was shamelessly seeking guidance from Jonin like us. So, you're saying Natsuki knew Kakashi-sensei before, and that's why he's so strong. Naruto and Sakura thought they understood, but in reality, they still didn't. Kakashi nodded, then shook his head. It was true Natsuki had sought advice from him and Guy, but most of the time, he relied on self-study. More importantly, he had a burning desire to become stronger, relentlessly training without slacking off. That was the true reason behind Natsuki's strength. Sasuke simply wasn't a match for him right now. Tenten looked at the innocent Naruto and Sakura with some pity. The 3 of them from Team 7 had no idea how hard Natsuki had worked to become strong. He was someone who, just to learn the Hachiman Tonk, 8 Gates technique, had trained himself to the point of fainting from pain in an extremely harsh environment. He was someone who, without any inheritance of jutsus, tirelessly invented and studied new ninjutsu and techniques day and night. He was someone who shamelessly sought out powerful people everywhere to learn from. How could someone like that possibly be weak? Even Tenten, his girlfriend, was inspired and guided by him and had also become stronger herself. If she hadn't met Natsuki, she might have still been just as naive and adorable as the Team 7 kids now. Ahem, the gap is quite large. Sasuke climbed back to his feet. Looks like I underestimated you. You really are strong, and you do have the right to evaluate me. But I won't give up that easily. As he spoke, he quickly formed hand seals and prepared to unleash his Katon, Gaki no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. However, before he could, Natsuki suddenly disappeared. The next moment, Sasuke felt a tight grip on the back of his neck. Natsuki had grabbed him firmly. You've lost, Natsuki said bluntly. I lost. Sasuke forced the words out. Even with his Sharingan activated, he hadn't seen Natsuki's movement. He didn't even know when Natsuki had appeared behind him. The gap was just too large. There was no comparison. Continuing to fight would only bring humiliation. Natsuki released him and silently formed the seal of reconciliation, leaving Sasuke standing there in a daze. Naruto and Sakura hadn't even fully processed what happened. It was already over. They couldn't accept this result. In their eyes, Sasuke was so strong, how could he lose so easily? But reality was harsh. At this point, Team 7 simply couldn't tell the difference between strength and weakness. Naruto especially was completely naive. Just like during the Chunin exams when Team 7 encountered Orochimaru, Sasuke realized the difference in power and tried to retreat. But Naruto questioned him. Why retreat? Wasn't Sasuke strong enough? Why not bravely fight? He had no idea that just one glance from Orochimaru had terrified Sasuke. If they didn't run, it would have been suicide. Sasuke might not fear death, but he wouldn't just watch Naruto and Sakura die. Thus, he chose to retreat. Naruto, who understood nothing, foolishly urged Sasuke to fight, resulting in Sasuke getting bitten by the snake. Although Orochimaru would probably have bitten Sasuke anyway later, the circumstances would have been different. At least it wouldn't have been blind ignorance leading to disaster. But back to the present. Seeing his students so devastated, Kakashi had a headache. Natsuki, you hit them a bit too hard, Kakashi said. Natsuki scratched his head and defended himself. Kakashi-senpai, don't worry. Sasuke has a strong heart. Only by taking a heavy blow can his ambition to become stronger be ignited. I'm doing this for his own good. Kakashi was speechless. This guy was blatantly lying with a straight face. Still, even though that reasoning sounded forced, it wasn't entirely wrong. Sasuke often became stronger after setbacks. Maybe this was a good thing too. Kakashi decided not to pursue the matter and asked instead. So, what did you want to ask me? Something about Kenjutsu. Natsuki pulled out 2 short swords from his scroll, tossing one to Kakashi. Yes, it's about Kenjutsu. I'm having trouble with Raiden, Shunshin, lightning release, body flicker technique. I can't integrate it smoothly into my swordplay. I can only forcefully speed up using Hachiman Tonk, but that's not ideal. Please teach me how to master Raiden, Shunshin, Kakashi-senpai. Raiden, Shunshin, hey? You really know how to give me a hard problem. Kakashi sighed but agreed anyway. In truth, he had some experience with it too. After all, his Chidori relied on extremely fast movement combined with Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hit anyone. Since he had promised before to answer Natsuki's questions, he couldn't back out now. Alright, come at me. Thank you, Kakashi-senpai. Natsuki didn't hold back. Lightning crackled around his short blade as he rushed forward. In an instant, sword lights and sparks of lightning clashed violently. Both moved so fast they became invisible. Only flashes of electricity could be seen, crackling through the training ground. Sasuke, who had been feeling dejected, was now stunned. Even with his Sharingan at full power, he could only see after images. At this level of battle, he couldn't even follow with his eyes. Naruto and Sakura were even more dumbfounded. Natsuki's already strong enough to fight Kakashi-sensei. They knew very well how strong Kakashi was. Not to mention the whole Bell test just during the Land of Waves mission, Kakashi had soloed Momokai Zabuza, which already felt ridiculously powerful to them. Yet now, they saw Kakashi using incredible Kenjutsu, moving so fast he became invisible, and Natsuki, a peer, was able to fight back evenly. The blow to their pride was even harsher than before. Sasuke's whole body trembled. So, when he fought me earlier, he was just playing. No. No way. The gap can't be this huge. At that moment, they also noticed something about Tenten standing nearby. Her eyes were darting quickly, focused and anxious, but not confused. She seemed to actually see the battle. Sakura couldn't help but ask. Tenten, you can see them? Tenten blinked, then nodded. Yeah, I can see them clearly. The 3 were stunned. How? Tenten shrugged. Probably because I'm used to it. Natsuki's speed is always this fast. When I sparred with him, I had no choice but to adapt. Once you get used to it, it's not that hard. And if you become strong enough, it's not difficult to see their movements. Strong enough? Meaning, they were just too weak right now, even unable to see the shadows of the real fight? Sasuke pressed. Why is Natsuki asking Kakashi-sensei for Kenjutsu guidance? Tenten answered straightforwardly. Because Natsuki practices the Hotaki Ry Kenjutsu, the sword style of the Hotaki clan. Chapter 88. After an exhilarating battle, Natsuki faintly felt like he had grasped something. Whether in speed or Kenjutsu, Kakashi was still superior to Natsuki. Especially in terms of speed, it felt just like Raiden Shunshin, lightning instantaneous body technique. It seemed he needed to properly reflect on it after returning home. After expressing his gratitude, Natsuki left with Tenten. Team 7 remained silent for a long time until Kakashi took out his Ika Ika Paradise novel to read. Only then did Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura snap out of it. Naruto was the first to ask, Kakashi-sensei, you actually taught your family's Kenjutsu to Natsuki? Kakashi blinked innocently. Is there a problem? Thinking about it, there didn't seem to be. The Kenjutsu belonged to Kakashi, it was his to teach to whomever he wanted. Nobody else could complain. Sakura, however, asked another question, Kakashi-sensei, Natsuki's girlfriend Tenten, is she strong too? Kakashi answered as if it were obvious, of course. Tenten is very strong. And her fighting style is quite unique. She even has hidden trump cards that not even I know about. In any case, she's very impressive. Right now, none of you three are her match. Sasuke's pupil shrank. So not only could he not defeat Natsuki, he couldn't even defeat Natsuki's girlfriend? How could it be like this? After a long silence, Sasuke suddenly said, "Kakashi, teach me your ultimate technique." Kakashi looked up from his book. "My ultimate technique?" Sasuke nodded seriously. "The kenjutsu you taught Natsuki. If he also learned that amazing kenjutsu, maybe he could become as strong as Natsuki? Maybe he could even defeat Itachi?" But Kakashi shook his head. "That's not my ultimate technique, that's my father's kenjutsu. Besides, I didn't really teach Natsuki, he learned it himself from a scroll. I don't care. I want to learn that kenjutsu and your ultimate technique too." "You're pretty greedy, hey?" Kakashi chuckled rather than being annoyed. "Learning my ultimate technique is no easy task. And my father's kenjutsu? Natsuki spent a year training just to reach his current level. Are you sure you have the determination and perseverance for it?" Sasuke said with certainty, "Bring it on. I'm not afraid. There's nothing I can't learn." Naruto quickly chimed in, "Kakashi-sensei. Teach me something too. I want to get stronger." Sakura timidly raised her hand, then silently lowered it again. She decided she would talk to Kakashi privately later. She clearly understood her own weakness. After being scolded fiercely by Natsuki before, she was still feeling miserable. She really wanted to become stronger too. "Very well." Kakashi smiled happily, like he was starting to enjoy teaching students. "If you're all prepared, then I won't go easy on you." Meanwhile, after dropping Tenten off at her ninja tool shop, Natsuki returned home by himself. Tenten didn't insist on staying with him. She understood that Natsuki had gained some insights and urgently needed to focus on them. Originally, she hadn't even wanted him to walk her home, but since Natsuki insisted, she accepted. She hoped her boyfriend would become stronger and stronger, so she could rest easy. Back at home, Natsuki immediately entered the gravity training room. He was gradually adapting to the tenfold gravity. However, his physical strength wasn't increasing quickly, not because he lacked talent, but because of the nature of this world itself. It wasn't like in Dragon Ball, where training under high gravity for a certain amount of time would make you exponentially stronger. Nor was it like in the One Piece world, where working 200 times harder than others could turn you into an admiral in 2 years. Not at all. This was a world focused on ninjutsu. If you had high comprehension, you could develop powerful techniques within a month. But if you focused purely on taijutsu, even after 10 or 20 years of brutal training, you might still see no significant results. The most typical example was Might Guy. Even after honing his body for many years, opening all 8 gates only allowed him to cripple Madara. If it had been One Piece, he would have been a Yonko by now. Tch. Fortunately, Natsuki wasn't anxious. There were still many years left until the ultimate battles. He still had plenty of time to grow stronger. Right now, he needed to focus on mastering the Hotaki-style kenjutsu. He recalled the previous battle with Kakashi, replaying Kakashi's movements in his mind. It felt like the lightning wasn't just surging on the surface, it was alive, propelling the body at insane speeds. He tried to imitate it, and he actually found a faint sense of it. Encouraged, he threw himself even more seriously into the practice. If once wasn't enough, he'd do it twice. If twice wasn't enough, he'd try 10 or 100 times. No way he couldn't master it. Fortunately, Natsuki truly had outstanding talent. He had simply never thought of this path before. But after Kakashi's guidance, he very quickly mastered Raiden Shunshin, lightning instantaneous body technique. Inside the gravity training room, he was now like a bolt of lightning flashing madly around. And that was under tenfold gravity. If gravity returned to normal, he would be even faster. Raiden Shunshin is finally fully mastered. Next step, combining it with kenjutsu, I must reach the speed of the White Fang, or even surpass it. At that point, even cage-level powerhouses will be no threat. Unknowingly, a month passed. Natsuki's training progressed smoothly, putting him in a good mood. Recently, Team 9 hadn't taken on any missions, they were focused on training. Rainya was being subjected to extra training from his cousin, Aoba. Megumi went to the hospital to help out. As for Natsuki, he trained alone most of the time, and occasionally sparred with Guy's team. Guy's team welcomed him warmly not just because he was Tenten's boyfriend, but also because they were friends. Moreover, Neji, perhaps influenced by Lee, challenged Natsuki every time they met, and even after losing repeatedly, he never got discouraged. As for Lee, he was even crazier. After challenging Natsuki, he'd immediately turn around and challenge Neji, then Tenten, though he was constantly being defeated miserably. Yet Lee remained relentlessly positive. Even Neji had to admit a certain admiration, and he learned a thing or two from Lee's attitude. Because of this, the atmosphere within Guy's team became extremely positive. One day, while buying groceries, Natsuki noticed an influx of foreign shinobi in the village. He even spotted the sound trio Sakon, Teiwa, and Kid Meru. It seemed the Chunin exams were just around the corner. That said, even though Hiruzen already knew that Otagakure and Orochimaru were connected, he still allowed the sound ninja to participate? Wasn't that way too reckless? Well, it wasn't Natsuki's concern anyway. Hiruzen had his own considerations. Besides, he would eventually die, paving the way for Tsunade to take over. That would actually be better for Natsuki. Under Tsunade's leadership, he could openly unleash his real strength. And he could finally request more secret techniques, things like Hiration no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, and Kukiyos, Kagezaki Fuda, mutually multiplying explosive tags. Things he wouldn't dare ask for under Hiruzen, he could definitely ask Tsunade for. Funny how fate worked, wasn't it? Natsuki didn't trust that old man Hiruzen at all. All he could do was wait for the old fogey to die and Tsunade to ascend. Sure enough, the very next day, Aoba handed out the Chunin exam application forms. Aoba said, "With your strength, you're more than capable of handling this exam. Give it your all, don't waste your efforts." The three of them exchanged looks, then simultaneously put on green sunglasses and shouted, "We're Team Aoba. The Chunin exams are no problem for us." Chapter 89. This was Natsuki's suggestion. The reason he gave was that since Team 9 was Aoba's team, they needed a characteristic unique to them, so wearing green sunglasses would do. Anyway, wearing sunglasses looked pretty cool, much better than wearing a green tight suit and turning into a kappa. But the real reason was to be able to unleash Teiken, Solar Flare, at any time. Starting from the Chunin exams, they would gradually encounter stronger opponents, and even Natsuki wasn't confident he could win every battle. That's where Teiken, Solar Flare, would come into play. With everyone wearing sunglasses, when facing a tough opponent, they could use a single Teiken to blind them temporarily, buying enough time to counterattack or flee. It was a very good strategy. Teiken was an excellent technique for pulling dirty tricks. Just think of Dragon Ball Cell used Teiken multiple times to escape pursuit, eventually evolving into his perfect form and thrashing the protagonist group. Teiken, truly the ultimate escape move. Thus, wearing sunglasses wasn't just about looking cool, it could be a lifesaver when it mattered. Aoba was stunned when he saw them, but quickly forced a smile and said, "You guys are really something. But wearing sunglasses does have some advantages. At the very least, it hides where your eyes are looking and can even conceal killing intent. If you like them, go ahead and wear them." As he spoke, he even adjusted his own sunglasses. Natsuki and the others understood immediately their teacher was actually quite pleased. Rainya immediately said, "Don't worry, Aoba and I. From now on, this will be the symbol of Team Aoba, stylish, cool, and awesome. Who wouldn't give us a thumbs up?" "Alright, I get it. After you finish filling out your registration forms, just submit them at the registration office on exam day. I have things to do, so I'm heading off." Just as Aoba finished speaking, someone called out to him, and he hurried over. Natsuki glanced at the person and saw a brown-haired man with a scar on his left cheek. He looked vaguely familiar. And soon enough, Natsuki remembered. "Isn't that Rado? I think Aoba, Rado, and Genma used to be a team. They're the ones who can perform the Hiration no Jin, Flying Thunder formation, technique, teleporting people from one place to another. I wonder, could they possibly have access to the Hiration no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, scroll or something similar?" Natsuki quickly started plotting. Thick-skinned as he was, he firmly believed that relationships must be utilized whenever possible. Since Rado and Genma were Aoba's old teammates, there was a chance he could ask, and maybe, just maybe, he could get a shot at learning Hiration no Jutsu. Rado and Genma had once served as the 4th Hokage's bodyguards. They had definitely studied Hiraishin no Jutsu, though perhaps their talents weren't enough to fully master it, which was why they needed 3 people to pull off the Hiraishin no Jin, Flying Thunder formation. It might seem a bit lackluster compared to the original, but it was still useful. Since they lacked the talent to fully master it, shouldn't they share it with someone who might? Natsuki wasn't sure if he could learn Hiraishin no Jutsu himself, but he was determined to at least get his hands on it first. Besides, Tenten also had a natural affinity for space-time ninjutsu. If she learned it, it would be even better. In short, there was no way he would let such a treasure slip through his fingers. Soon, the 3 of them finished filling out their registration forms. Natsuki gathered them all, planning to submit them together on the day of the exam. That night, Natsuki couldn't sleep. Hiraishin no Jutsu was all he could think about. Hearing snoring coming from the master bedroom, he quietly got up and snuck into Tenten's room. Natsuki. Tenten whispered happily. It's me, Natsuki replied softly, quickly closing the door behind him. Unexpectedly, Tenten turned on a small flashlight, lifted the covers, and beckoned to him. Natsuki didn't hesitate. He dove into the warm bed, immediately enveloped in a sweet fragrance that made his mind wander uncontrollably. Especially when Tenten snuggled into his chest, it was dangerously tempting. Ahem. Tenten, this feels like we're having a secret affair, Natsuki said helplessly, forcing a wry smile. What can we do? Dad's still home. Otherwise, we could just move to your place. Let Dad stay here alone, Tenten grumbled. If we do that, wouldn't your dad cry himself to sleep? He'd feel like his precious daughter abandoned him. Not really. We'd still come here for meals, just sleep over at your place. Besides, we can't even talk freely now. We have to whisper like this just to avoid waking him. It's really inconvenient. It was inconvenient. But Natsuki thought privately that her dad would probably prefer noisy arguments over letting his daughter move into a wolf's den. Natsuki didn't answer. Instead, he simply hugged Tenten closer, breathing in her scent. Immediately, his heart felt calm, all his anxieties melting away, though his hands started getting a bit mischievous. Tenten pressed down on his wandering hand. Natsuki, you're thinking about something, aren't you? Natsuki didn't hide it. I just can't sleep. Guess who I saw today? Tenten was curious. Who? Don't tell me, a girl prettier than me. What nonsense. There's no girl prettier than you. Natsuki whispered sweet words as he kissed her lightly before continuing. I saw Aoba-sensei's teammate Rado. You probably don't know him, but he's not just anyone. Tenten perked up immediately. She didn't know much about the ninjas of Konoha. Most of her information came from Natsuki. If he was so excited that he couldn't sleep, it must be something incredible. Aoba-sensei's teammates, Rado and Genma, once served as bodyguards for the 4th Hokage. Do you know what the 4th was famous for? Hiraishin no Jutsu, the Flying Thunder God technique. It's a space-time ninjutsu. If you leave a chakra mark somewhere, you can instantly teleport there at any time. It's insanely powerful, or rather, insanely fast. Back during the Third Shinobi World War, even before he became Hokage, the 4th used Hiraishin no Jutsu to wreak havoc across the battlefield. One moment he'd be at home eating dinner, the next moment he'd be deep in enemy territory. He terrified the enemy so much that the villages had a standing order. If you encountered the yellow flash, you were permitted to abandon the mission without punishment. Thanks to such overwhelming fame and military success, he eventually ascended to the Hokage's seat. Tenten sat up immediately, even in the darkness her excitement was palpable. Thankfully, she remembered to keep her voice low. She lay back down and pressed close to Natsuki, whispering into his ear. This Hiraishin no Jutsu, it's really a space-time ninjutsu. She couldn't help but be thrilled. Her natural talent lay in space-time ninjutsu. If she could master something like this, she could truly become strong. It was her destined path. If the 4th could become a legend through it, why couldn't she become a legendary kunoichi? Yes, Natsuki confirmed without hesitation. He pinched her little nose gently. Don't get too excited yet. Let me finish explaining. Tenten nodded eagerly, pressing even closer to him. Chapter 90. Natsuki's eyes darkened slightly, feeling a little uneasy and struggling to keep his hands under control. He quickly continued the topic to divert his attention. I only remembered after seeing Rado today. He and Genma used to serve as bodyguards for the 4th Hokage. They also trained in Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique. However, perhaps because of insufficient talent, they didn't master it fully and instead formed a three-man team with Iwashi, developing the Hiraishin no Jin, Flying Thunder Formation, a method to teleport people or objects. Tenten immediately frowned. Such a powerful space-time ninjutsu, how did they end up like that? Isn't that kind of useless? It is a bit disappointing, Natsuki chuckled, but no problem. We can still try asking them to teach us. Since they're Aoba Sensei's partners, I have to leverage that connection. Call me thick-skinned if you want. I'm getting my hands on the Hiraishin no Jutsu training scroll no matter what. Tenten kissed Natsuki on the cheek and seriously nodded. My boyfriend is super thick-skinned but I love it. Now Tenten understood why Natsuki couldn't sleep. It was because he stumbled upon such a huge opportunity. Of course he was too excited to rest. Actually, now she was equally excited herself. Tomorrow they'd probably leave the house with dark circles under their eyes. The only uncertainty was, when would they actually get their hands on the Hiraishin no Jutsu scroll? The two of them fell silent, breathing in each other's presence, feeling each other's heartbeats. Their faces drew closer and closer. Mint toothpaste flavor, not bad at all. Fortunately, the two of them were already trained ninja with decent self-control. Otherwise, it could have gotten dangerous. They were still too young after all. So, they changed the topic to something else. Today, Aoba Sensei gave us the registration forms for the Chunin exams, Natsuki mentioned. Your team guy is signing up too, right? Tenten nodded confidently. Last year, Guy Sensei thought Lee's strength wasn't enough, so we didn't apply. But this year, we're definitely participating. With my current strength, becoming a Chunin shouldn't be a problem, right? She was full of confidence. After all, without even using her trump cards, she could now fight Neji to a standstill for a short time. If that wasn't enough to pass the Chunin exams, then 99% of the candidates might as well give up. In Tenten's opinion, Natsuki, Neji, Shino, and herself were absolutely among the top candidates this year. So, there was nothing to worry about. Natsuki wasn't particularly worried about the exams either. He was mainly worried about Orochimaru's antics. As long as Orochimaru didn't harm his family and friends, Natsuki didn't care if he killed Hiruzen Sarutobi. But if he endangered Tenten or any of his friends, Natsuki would show no mercy. His mastery over Hotaki-style Kenjutsu was no joke. Now teaming up with others to deal with Orochimaru wasn't impossible. Still, just in case, Natsuki decided to warn Tenten seriously. Tenten, don't let your guard down during the exam. Remember I told you about Otagakuer? This time, there are shinobi from Otagakuer participating. You have to be extra careful. Tenten listened seriously, casually tucking the flashlight away. But she somehow felt like there was still another thing as big as a flashlight in the blanket. 2 days later, Natsuki and Tenten headed to the registration office. Rainya, Megumi, Neji, and Lee were already waiting downstairs, so the 6 of them went together into the building. As soon as they reached the second floor, they saw a commotion in front of a large classroom. It seemed some candidates were trying to enter the room, but Konoha's 2 gatekeepers were blocking the entrance with aggressive attitudes. Looking up at the door frame above the classroom, the sign clearly said 3rd floor. A simple genjutsu test. If you couldn't even see through this, you really didn't deserve to take the exam. Better to go home and sleep. Just then, a familiar voice called out from behind. Hey! Natsuki, Tenten, you guys are signing up too. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura walked over, looking quite spirited. Before Natsuki or Tenten could reply, Lee suddenly dashed forward, blocking Team 7. Then, everyone watched as Lee performed a deep bow towards Sakura and said loudly. You must be Harano Sakura-san. I'm Rock Lee. I like you. Please go out with me. I will protect you with my life. Natsuki face-palmed. Oh right. This part of the story. According to the anime, Sakura was considered very pretty, hence Naruto liked her, and Lee fell for her at first sight. What made it worse was that Lee's love wasn't just a joke later on, he truly did protect her with his life. Poor Lee, how did he fall for her of all people? Sakura instantly froze, then quickly refused. Sorry. Your eyebrows are too thick. And you're not my type. After that, she immediately hid behind Sasuke. Naruto exploded instantly, shouting in chaos. Natsuki's face twitched at the ridiculous scene. He quickly grabbed Tenten, who was struggling not to blurt out sarcastic remarks, and dragged her toward the real third floor. Rainya and Megumi hurried after them. Neji called out to Lee once before following too. There was nothing worth watching in this circus, better not waste time getting into the exam room. They soon entered the third-floor examination hall. The moment they stepped inside, a sea of hostile stares greeted them. Everyone looked fierce and murderous. Anyone less than iron-willed would feel crushed by the pressure. But Natsuki's group obviously wasn't ordinary. Calmly scanning the room, they locked onto their friend's position and headed straight over. Shino, Shikamaru, Chiji, Ino, Kaiba, Hinata, looks like you guys from Team 8 and Team 10 signed up too. Long time no see. How's everyone doing? Natsuki said this as he bumped fists with Shino. They had been desk mates and close friends for years. Their bond was naturally stronger. Tenten also greeted them with a bright smile, but her smile for Shino was special. Not just because he was a friend, but because he had played matchmaker for her and Natsuki. Their relationship with Shino was something unique. Natsuki, Tenten, long time no see. Shino said with rare emotion. He was genuinely happy, not just because he saw old friends, but because Natsuki and Tenten always noticed him immediately. After all, his sense of presence was very low. Even Kaiba and Hinata, both skilled scouts, often forgot about him. Only Natsuki and Tenten consistently noticed him right away. Naturally, that made him very happy. I knew you two lovebirds would show up, Ino teased with a wave. But hey, why is everyone in Team 9 wearing sunglasses? Sheesh, such a troublesome exam. Shikamaru said lazily, just like always. Hey Natsuki, after the exam, let's go to your house for a feast. I've been craving your cooking for ages. Chiji chimed in and everyone immediately agreed. Wasn't that the truth? Natsuki's cooking was amazing. Ever since they graduated, they hadn't tasted it again. Kaiba and Akamaru barked excitedly in agreement. Hinata, however, stayed silent, timid as always. Especially after seeing Neji was here too. She became even more nervous. Fortunately, Neji didn't make things difficult for her this time, allowing Hinata to secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 91. It was truly comforting to know that all their friends were safe and sound. Nothing brought more joy than that. Natsuki and Tenten chatted casually with the others. As for the ninjas from other villages, there was no need to pay them much mind. Oh, right. There was that Chunin with the red love character on his forehead. That guy needed attention. Mentally unstable. It'd be a real headache if he got fixated on someone. Not like they could just kill him on the spot, right? Just then, Lee returned, thankfully not too late. According to him, he had gotten into a fight with Sasuke, but it hadn't gone well for him. Seemed Sasuke had gotten stronger. Natsuki gave Lee a glance. It looked like Sasuke had been spurred on by their previous encounter and probably sought extra training from Kakashi. Otherwise, he couldn't have surpassed Lee at this point. Still, that was fine. It helped Sasuke hold his own when Orochimaru showed up in the Forest of Death, giving him a fighting chance rather than being outright crushed. Not long after, Team 7 pushed open the door and entered, drawing everyone's attention again. The intense gazes of the crowd made all three of them feel uneasy. Even the usually brash Naruto found himself uncomfortable under so many eyes. As expected, the plot unfolded just like before. The white-haired, bespectacled Yakushi Kabuto stepped forward, pretending to be helpful as he introduced some intel on the examinees. He even went so far as to expose the fact that he'd taken the Chunin exams multiple times without success. Then he stirred up some fake conflict with the Sound Ninja trio, trying to make himself look weak. You had to admit he could act. What none of them knew was that everything happening in this room was being watched. Back in the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen stared silently at his crystal ball, a pipe between his lips. Beside him, Midokado Homura couldn't help but voice his concern. Hiruzen, isn't this a little too risky? You know that Otogakure is linked to Orochimaru, and yet you still allowed their ninja to participate in the Chunin exams. Aren't you worried they're up to something? Koharu also added, Orochimaru knows Konoha and the Land of Fire like the back of his hand, and he's incredibly powerful. If he really makes a move, we'll have a hard time stopping him. I know everything you just said. Hiruzen calmly puffed on his pipe. They say you can't guard against a thief for 1,000 days. Right now, Orochimaru is in the shadows. We have no way of preventing his actions when we don't even know what he plans to do. Since those Otogakure ninja are his people, let's allow them in. Keep them under surveillance. Maybe we can follow the trail and find Orochimaru. Homura and Koharu understood. It had already been discussed during the council meetings. Even so, they still felt they needed to be more cautious when it came to Orochimaru. A single misstep could lead to disaster. After thinking for a moment, Hiruzen made a decision. We can inform Jiraiya. If Orochimaru does appear, at least we won't be lacking in strength. Only then did Homura and Koharu finally breathe a little easier. If Jiraiya came back, there'd still be someone capable of restraining Orochimaru. The village would be safe. As for the so-called strongest Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, whether he was still as strong as his reputation suggested was up for debate, but he was certainly old now. Against Orochimaru, things could become truly dangerous. If anything happened to Hiruzen, Konoha would lose its cornerstone. The balance of power within the council would need to be reshuffled, and the Land of Fire could end up at war. Truly, these were troubled times. Back at the exam hall, Marino Ibiki arrived with a group of Chunin and swiftly put an end to the farce. Then he collected all the registration forms and had the examinees take their assigned seats. Finally, he announced the content of the first test, a written exam. Most people weren't surprised. After all, information gathering was a fundamental ninja skill. And Konoha had hosted the Chunin exams many times before. Everyone knew the routine by now. The only ones reacting like it was unexpected were Team 7. What else could you say? Team 7's basic skills were clearly lacking. They barely did any intel gathering. Their sensory abilities were weak. They often only realized an enemy was there when they were already face to face. Their various questionable actions made one's eye twitch just watching them. Natsuki didn't bother with the others. He split off 2 threads of chakra from his forehead and connected them to Rainya and Megumi's foreheads. Then, he began sending Morse code via electrical pulses. This test should be about intel gathering. The proctor's strict. Don't act on your own if you are not confident. I've got it covered. The 2 of them immediately tapped back using their chakra threads, also in Morse code. Understood. The exam papers were quickly distributed. With a glance, Natsuki could tell the questions were extremely difficult. Few people could complete them independently. Only Sakura and Hinata stood a chance of answering on their own. Natsuki didn't even bother trying to solve the questions. He formed a single hand seal and created a small, almost invisible lens in the air, which connected to another lens beneath his sunglasses. He then locked onto a Konoha candidate who had clearly been planted to be copied from. That guy was already scribbling away. The difficult questions didn't even seem to faze him. Clearly, he was placed there for the others to cheat off of. As Natsuki copied the answers, he also transmitted them to his 2 teammates via chakra thread Morse code. As for Tenten, she had her own way of handling things. Natsuki didn't have to worry about her at all. Soon, the planted candidate finished his paper, and the 3 of them did the same, setting down their pens confidently as if simply waiting for the test to end. Naturally, the proctors noticed. Several of them couldn't help but nod. The ability to gather intel this efficiently was undeniably impressive. Don't assume that handing in a blank test would be fine just because passing wasn't solely based on scores. Sure, you could still pass, but the proctor's evaluations also mattered greatly when determining whether someone could become a Chunin. Why was Shikamaru the only one who became a Chunin in the original story? It wasn't just because of his performance in the final battles. His behavior during the written exam also played a role. Natsuki didn't intend to remain a genin forever. Ideally, he wanted to be promoted to genin as soon as Tsunade became Hokage. That would make a lot of problems disappear. For example, he could then ask Tsunade for advanced knowledge in ninjutsu, summoning techniques, and sealing arts. This was crucial. If Natsuki wanted to make the most out of his special lab, he needed as much advanced knowledge as possible. Otherwise, many of his experiments would be impossible. Take for instance the fusion of water and lightning chakra to create Ranten, storm release. It wasn't that Natsuki didn't want to try, it was that he didn't have the slightest clue how to start. Not a shred of knowledge in his head. If success came simply by thinking hard enough, he'd already be invincible. So yes, status mattered. With higher status came greater influence and better bargaining chips to get the knowledge he needed. That's why he had to perform exceptionally well in this Chunin exam to accelerate his promotion. Natsuki glanced at Tenten and saw her using small mirrors to gather answers, even passing them along to Lee. Everything was going smoothly. The others also showed off their own clever methods. Neji used Byakugan to copy answers. Sasuke activated his Sharingan to mimic movements. Kaiba relied on his dog. Shino used insects. Ino employed Shinten no Jutsu, mind transfer technique. Gaara used his Suna no Mi, Sandai. It was a dazzling variety of techniques. Only Naruto was still scratching his head, completely clueless about the true purpose of the exam. And even if he did figure it out, he had no way of cheating. If Marino Ibiki hadn't pulled that trick with the final question, Team 7 would have been eliminated right then and there. Chapter 92. As expected, right near the end of the test, Ibiki's twisted sense of humor kicked in. He made the examinees choose whether or not to answer the 10th question. If they chose not to, they could leave the exam immediately. But if they chose to answer and failed, they would be genin for life. Who did he think he was scaring? You think you're the Hokage or something? You don't have the authority to decide someone's promotion. Besides, some examinees were from other villages. Their promotions were decided by their own leaders. And even if they didn't pass here, what's stopping them from trying again at Kumagakure's Chunin exams next time? What could Ibiki do about it? Only those with poor mental resilience got spooked. Sakura nearly raised her hand until Naruto launched his signature talk no jutsu and started yelling how even if he stayed a genin forever, he'd still become Hokage. Blowing hot air without a script. The craziest part? Ibiki actually admired that. A genin becoming Hokage? What a joke. Oh wait, he actually does later. Right, plot armor. Never mind. The whole thing felt like a farce. Natsuki even had to stifle a yawn. Next came Mitarashi Anko Ano, Mitarashi Red Bean crashing dramatically through the window, clearly thinking she was making an epic entrance. Spoiler, it was mostly awkward. After announcing the time and location for the second stage of the exam, everyone was dismissed. As they walked out of the testing hall, Naruto loudly proclaimed, "What was that? I thought this exam was supposed to be hard. That was a piece of cake." Natsuki couldn't hold back and quipped, "Naruto, you handed in a blank sheet." Gawk. Naruto froze on the spot. Everyone turned to look at him. Their eyes were full of suspicion. This guy just said it was easy, but he didn't answer a single question. Sasuke and Sakura didn't look too pleased either. "Naruto, you idiot." They both muttered with cold faces. Naruto hurried to defend himself. "Hey, I had no choice. I didn't know any of the answers, and I couldn't even cheat. If I'd been caught cheating, I'd be kicked out on the spot. I had it rough, okay. But excuses didn't matter." Sasuke and Sakura turned their faces away coldly. If not for that final question gimmick from Ibiki, Naruto's blank sheet would have meant Team 7's immediate failure. His teammates would have been dragged down with him. And yet he had the gall to call it easy? Where's your shame? Feeling wronged, Naruto turned to Natsuki. "Why'd you have to expose me like that, Natsuki?" Natsuki rolled his eyes in pure Hyuga fashion. "You dared to act like it was easy, so why shouldn't I call you out?" "Naruto, there's nothing shameful about admitting you don't know something. Everyone knows you're bad at tests. What's the point in lying about it? That smug attitude of yours just rubs people the wrong way." The others nodded. No one liked a braggart. Well, except a certain white-eyed loli. Naruto couldn't argue anymore. The stares from the other examinees were getting to him. In the end, Sakura had to drag him away to save him from further embarrassment. Tenten sighed. "Naruto just never grows up, does he?" "Exactly," Natsuki replied. "He's already a full-fledged ninja and still acts like a clueless kid. Does he think bluffing is going to earn him respect? If he'd just admitted he got lucky, we might have even praised him a little. But instead, he had to go and brag. That kind of behavior really turns people off." "Don't be so harsh, Natsuki. Naruto's just scared," Shino said kindly in his usual calm tone. "He's always afraid of being looked down on, of not being acknowledged. So when he messes up, he tries to convince himself otherwise. He's not trying to deceive everyone else, just himself." Natsuki nodded. "I get that, Shino. But not everyone else will understand. That's why I spoke up to show him that what he's doing isn't okay. If he doesn't learn and grow, he'll just keep losing friends. And honestly, I don't want to wake up one day and realize I can't stand him anymore." Shino fell silent. He understood where Natsuki was coming from. It was fine to be immature in school, but once you became a ninja, you had to face reality. You couldn't afford to stay naive forever. Naruto did need to grow. People were willing to be patient with him, but patience had its limits. Eventually, if he didn't mature, he'd find himself truly alone. Let's drop the subject. It's rare for all of us to be together like this. Want to come hang out at my place? Natsuki offered. I'd love to, but not today, Shino declined with a polite shake of his head. It's already getting late, and we've got another exam tomorrow. I'd rather rest and recharge. Besides, coming over now would just mean extra work for you. I'll visit after the exam's over with some fresh veggies in hand. Natsuki and Tenten didn't push. Shino was thoughtful like that. He didn't want to trouble his friends after a tiring test. Truly, Shino was a great friend. After everyone went their separate ways, Natsuki and Tenten returned to the ninja tool shop. The shopkeeper had already prepared dinner for them, high-end takeout from a top restaurant, no less. A reward for the hard-working students. The two of them ate heartily while chatting about the exam, which the shopkeeper listened to with great interest. Tenten now realized her dad just liked hearing her talk about these things. Maybe it helped put him at ease. So she made a habit of bringing it up during meals, even getting Natsuki to chime in. Of course, she always shared the good stuff and avoided anything too dangerous. No need to worry the old man. After the meal, they each went to bathe separately, of course. Then they obediently went to bed. Though they didn't dare sleep in the same futon tonight just in case it kept them up and messed with their performance tomorrow. The next morning, all the examinees gathered at the entrance to the Forest of Death. Proctor Mitarashi Anko stood at the front and began explaining the rules of the second stage of the exam. Each team would receive one scroll, either a Heaven Scroll or an Earth Scroll. After entering the Forest of Death, teams would battle for the other scroll. To pass the test, a team needed to possess both a Heaven and Earth Scroll and reach the Central Tower within 5 days. This format guaranteed that at least half the participants would be eliminated. Brutally simple. If you were unlucky or weak, you weren't making it out. But at that moment, Natsuki was silently observing the team from Kyusagakuer. One of them, a person in a conical hat, kept glancing at him with a strange, unreadable look. It made Natsuki feel like prey being watched by a venomous snake. He recalled the original storyline and figured Orochimaru had likely already disguised himself as a Kyusagakuer genin. His goal? To inspect and select his future vessel. Although Natsuki's presence had altered the story a little, things hadn't completely fallen off the rails. So Orochimaru's infiltration probably still stood. Still, to be safe, Natsuki kept a close eye on them. That ugly female ninja from Kyusagakuer, her gaze was absolutely wrong. Cold and slithering like a snake. If that wasn't Orochimaru in disguise, then nobody would believe it. Chapter 93. Although the female Kyusagakuer ninja kept her eyes hidden beneath her hat, Natsuki's sharp instincts and strength allowed him to easily sense something was off. From his careful observation, Natsuki could tell that this kunoichi's main target was clearly Sasuke. It seemed she still hadn't let go of the trauma from being defeated by him in the past. She was still fixated on the Sharingan. However, her gaze wasn't only locked on Sasuke. When her eyes passed over Natsuki, there was a flicker of greed. Don't tell him she was considering him as a backup vessel? Natsuki silently analyzed the situation while subtly shifting his gaze toward Kabuto. It had to be him. Kabuto must have leaked the intel on Konoha's rising talents to Orochimaru, and that included Natsuki's personal information. Orochimaru was out hunting for a future vessel. Sasuke was the top candidate, but if he failed the Cursed Seal test, Orochimaru needed other options. Natsuki, whose talents had been growing more and more obvious in recent years, was naturally on that list. And probably not just Natsuki. Orochimaru likely had his eyes on several promising individuals. He wasn't invading Konoha just to kill his former teacher. He also intended to take some specimens back for experimentation. After all, Konoha was overflowing with talent, and Orochimaru needed those talents for his forbidden experiments. The more he thought about it, the worse Natsuki felt. He was very aware of how dangerous Orochimaru was. Being targeted by this kind of venomous snake was never a good thing. Even if Orochimaru didn't come for him directly, going after Sasuke was risky enough. Rock Lee would absolutely try to save Sakura, which would likely drag Tenten into the mess. Other friends might get caught in the crossfire too. Don't assume everything will go smoothly just because things worked out in the original story. That kind of naive optimism had no place here. If his girlfriend and friends really got swept into a fight with Orochimaru, the danger would be real and possibly fatal. So, what he had to do now, was eliminate the threat. There would be no following the original plot this time. At that moment, Anko had just finished explaining the exam rules when Naruto, being his usual self, mimicked her speech like a fool, annoying her instantly. Anko, once Orochimaru's student herself and someone who feared nothing and no one, was not the type to take that lying down. Even if Naruto was a Jinchuriki, she didn't care. Without hesitation, she hurled a kunai that grazed Naruto's cheek. Then, in a flash, she appeared behind him and even licked the wound with her tongue, sending shivers down Naruto's spine. Suddenly, Anko stiffened. Her hand instinctively reached for another kunai because somehow, a female Kyuzagaku ninja wearing a conical hat had silently appeared right behind her and extended a long, snake-like tongue to return the kunai. "Your kunai," she hissed. Her voice was raspy and bone-chilling. "Don't sneak up behind me like that. Do you have a death wish?" Anko snapped, a chill running down her spine. This person felt extremely dangerous. "You damaged my hair with it." The Kyuzagaku kunoichi handed the kunai back to Anko. Her gaze was meaningful and unsettling. Just as she was about to retreat, a sudden flash of lightning-infused steel shot toward her. She tilted her head just in time to dodge, but the blade still grazed her cheek. Blood dripped from the fresh cut. Leaping back, she covered her face and stared in surprise at her attacker. The surrounding examinees all turned their heads in shock at the commotion. Because a Konoha examinee had just attacked someone from another village. What's going on? Why did a Konoha ninja suddenly strike a candidate from another village? That's not part of the exam rules, is it? The female Kyuzagaku ninja's two teammates shouted. The rest of the non-Konoha ninjas looked over, some of them frowning in disapproval. Even Tenten and the others were surprised when they realized the attacker was Natsuki. Still, Tenten and Shino, who trusted Natsuki the most, didn't hesitate. Even without knowing the reason, they stepped beside him and guardedly faced the Kyuzagaku candidates. Anko quickly turned serious and barked, "What do you think you're doing? Attacking another candidate? Are you not afraid of being disqualified?" Natsuki didn't even look at her. His short blade pointed directly at the female Kyuzagaku ninja. Impressive dodge. Orochimaru. What? Oh, Orochimaru. She was Orochimaru. Everyone who knew the name staggered back in shock. Even the other proctors quickly surrounded the kunoichi, their expressions tense and wary. Anko's pupil shrank, and her hand instinctively clutched her shoulder. Though the cursed mark wasn't acting up at the moment, the mention of Orochimaru's name made it ache deep into her bones. Could it really be him? He was standing that close earlier. But why hadn't the cursed mark reacted? Or, had Natsuki simply made a mistake? The female Kyuzagaku ninja's twisted smile appeared. Her hoarse voice denied it. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Natsuki ignored her lies and stepped forward. "Your face is fake, isn't it? Why don't we pull it off and take a look? You killed the real Kyuzagaku ninja and took her face as a disguise. But your scent reeking of snakes gives you away. You can't fool me." This was Natsuki's move. For the safety of his girlfriend and his friends, he couldn't allow Orochimaru to participate in the exam. So he would expose him right now, while they were still in Konoha's territory, surrounded by Konoha ninjas. Even if they couldn't kill Orochimaru, they could force him to retreat. That way, the second round of the exam wouldn't become a nightmare. He immediately called out, "Tenten, Shino, this guy's an S-rank missing nin. Incredibly dangerous. Be careful. Rainya, Megumi fall back." As he spoke, he advanced another step. The disguised ninja's eyes twitched. She realized this round was blown. But instead of panicking, she chuckled. She reached up and wiped her face. The disguise melted away, revealing pale, bloodless skin and a pair of cold, reptilian slit pupils. He. I didn't expect to be exposed so soon. Konoha really is full of surprises. Orochimaru. It really is you. Anko gasped. Then she suddenly clutched her shoulder in pain and dropped to one knee. The cursed mark had begun to flare. Rainya and Megumi instinctively rushed over to support her. Megumi quickly checked her condition but was confused. She couldn't locate the cause of the pain. Naruto was still clueless. What the heck is going on? All he did was make fun of the proctor. How did things spiral into this? Sasuke immediately pulled out a kunai and snapped, "Idiot! That Kyuzagaku ninja is the enemy." By now, several Konoha proctors had surrounded Orochimaru, while others ran off to report the situation. But Orochimaru didn't look worried at all. Instead, he calmly stared at Natsuki and even licked the side of his face with his grotesquely long tongue, sending chills through everyone watching. "So your name is Natsuki, hey? That sword technique of yours looks familiar." Chapter 94. Even now, people still remembered the name White Fang of Konoha. Especially among the current exam proctors. Back when they were academy students, the White Fang's reputation had shaken the ninja world. There was no way they hadn't heard of him. What they didn't expect was that Natsuki had actually inherited White Fang's kenjutsu. For a moment, all the proctors looked at him in surprise, and even more so with hope. After all, White Fang once outshone even the Chunin. If Natsuki truly had the strength to suppress Orochimaru, then maybe he could buy them enough time for the Hokage to arrive. But once they recalled Natsuki's age, their hopes dimmed. He was just too young. Natsuki didn't bother responding to Orochimaru's mocking words. Lightning flickered along his body and blade. The next second zzzt, he vanished like a bolt of lightning and shot straight toward Orochimaru, blade thrusting forward. Orochimaru swiftly pulled out a kunai to block, but with a sharp metallic clang, his kunai was sliced clean into the cut impossibly smooth. And then, a red line bloomed on his neck. His head nearly flew off. That was it. The legendary Chunin was, this weak? Or was Natsuki just too strong? But Natsuki didn't lower his guard for even a second. He kept his eyes locked on the fallen body. Sure enough, the corpse's mouth suddenly split open from the inside. A pair of hands tore it apart, and a soaked Orochimaru emerged from within, completely unharmed. Hiss! Still alive! Everyone gasped in horror. Some of the female examinees couldn't take it and vomited on the spot. The sheer visual impact of that scene was too much for ordinary people to handle. He, looks like I underestimated you. You've mastered the White Fang's kenjutsu to this level? Then I suppose I'll need to take you seriously, Orochimaru said with a sinister smile. He opened his mouth wide, and in front of everyone, performed his signature, man vomits snake, snake vomits sword. The Kusanagi no Tsurugi, Kusanagi sword, landed in his hand, and he settled into a ready stance, awaiting Natsuki's next attack. Natsuki didn't hesitate. Raiden, Shunshin. Lightning style, instant step. He flashed forward again, his short blade enveloped in lightning. His strikes were blindingly fast, almost impossible to track. Yet Orochimaru handled it with ease. The air was filled with nothing but the sound of clashing steel and crackling thunder. The ground around them cracked and buckled, air distorted wildly, and their movements were so fast that most couldn't even catch a glimpse. Too fast. Only those with strong eyes or sensory skills could even follow their figures. Sasuke clenched his kunai tightly, his eyes filled with frustration. He had trained hard for a month under Kakashi. His kenjutsu and chidori had improved immensely. He'd thought he'd closed the gap between himself and Natsuki. But now he realized how naive he'd been. Natsuki hadn't stood still. He'd grown stronger too, and maybe at an even faster rate. Now, Natsuki could duel one of the Chunin in close combat. Meanwhile, Sasuke couldn't even follow their movements. The difference was staggering. Damn, he's amazing. One of the other examinees swallowed hard, chills running down their spine. They never imagined such a powerful monster was hiding among the participants. Just thinking about running into someone like him in the forest of death made their scalps tingle. Orochimaru being strong made sense. He was a Chunin, after all. But this kid Natsuki? He was just a genin. And yet he was fighting evenly against Orochimaru. Rumors said he'd learned the White Fang's blade techniques. Now everyone saw it with their own eyes. Was this really what Konoha's genin were like? Suddenly clang. Natsuki's short sword was snapped in half by the Kusanagi sword. Clearly, Orochimaru's strength was still superior. That sword also gave him an edge. Natsuki immediately retreated. But Orochimaru wasn't letting him go. He lunged after him, clearly intent on taking him down. However, before he got far, he leaped back in surprise. Shhh. 3 serpent-like blades stabbed into the ground where he'd just been, boring deep holes into the earth. If he hadn't dodged, those holes would have been in his body. Orochimaru traced the trajectory back and saw 10 girls with twin buns holding strange, scale-patterned swords. The blades were clearly made of overlapping scales and had 3 edges. They could extend, twist, and retract at will comparable to the Kusanagi sword in lethality. Thanks to their intervention, Natsuki managed to safely retreat. "Natsuki, are you okay?" Tenten called out anxiously. She stood in front of him, gripping one of the 4 legendary tools of the Artificer's Village Ryogen stretching sword. It could extend, retract, and split into 3 dragon heads. It consumed little chakra and was a superb offensive ninja tool. Before Tenten graduated, she'd secretly put up a high-priced bounty to acquire the 4 legendary tools. It was suspected that Kakuzu had delivered them because the bounty was that high. This was one of Tenten's trump cards. She wouldn't normally use it, but in critical moments like this, she could unleash strength on Par with a Jainin. At the very least, she could stall someone like Orochimaru. Relieved that Natsuki was unharmed, she quickly sheathed the Ryogen sword on her back and summoned the rest of the 4 tools. On her body was armor capable of absorbing chakra. In her hands 2 more weapons, the peacock sword, which controlled wind, and the light blade, which emitted flames. Fully equipped, she looked formidable. Tenten activated both swords. Whoosh! Wind and flames surged out at once, creating a blazing firestorm that exploded toward Orochimaru, forcing him to leap back. Everyone watching was stunned. No one expected this twin-bun girl from Konoha to be so powerful. She'd just pushed back Orochimaru. Team 7 was the most surprised of all. So this is what Kakashi-sensei meant when he said Tenten's fighting style was special. That was her trump card, huh? She's incredible. Even Orochimaru was intrigued. He chuckled with interest and gave rare praise. "You must be Natsuki's girlfriend Tenten, was it? Impressive talent for ninja tool control." Coming from one of the Sunin, that was no small compliment. Natsuki returned to Tenten's side and pulled out another short sword, but as he looked at the Kusanagi sword in Orochimaru's hand, he frowned. Another short blade wouldn't gain him anything. Maybe it was time to use that sword. Shino stepped forward and released a swarm of bugs to form a shield in front of Natsuki, guarding against a surprise attack. But Orochimaru didn't move. He clearly wasn't worried, at least not until the Hokage arrived. The surrounding proctors were all on edge, but none dared to act recklessly. They knew very well they weren't a match for Orochimaru. Charging in now would just be suicide. Better to form a perimeter and buy time. The Hokage would arrive soon. But then, Orochimaru swept his eyes over the crowd. Boom! An explosion of murderous intent surged from his gaze, sweeping over the examinees and proctors like a tsunami. Everyone froze. Those with weaker mental strength either collapsed on the spot or vomited uncontrollably. Orochimaru's bloodlust was overwhelming. Chapter 95. What is this guy, so terrifying? Naruto was trembling all over, completely frozen under the crushing weight of Orochimaru's killing intent. His pupils dilated in fear. Sakura had already rolled her eyes back on the verge of fainting. Even Sasuke had fallen to one knee, body shaking. For the first time, he truly felt terror, and finally understood just how terrifying the opponent Natsuki had faced was. Natsuki, in contrast, only had a layer of goosebumps. He was still standing firm. Tenten and Shino flinched too, but even then, they held their ground beside Natsuki, clenching their teeth to resist Orochimaru's aura. "I'm actually weaker than Tenten? Even weaker than Shino? How can I accept that?" Sasuke gritted his teeth and stabbed his thigh with a kunao, using the pain to jolt himself back to clarity. Finally, he regained control of his body and pulled out a short blade for defense. He hadn't finished learning Chidori yet, and this sword style was all he had. Damn it! What do I have to do to get stronger? Orochimaru gave Sasuke a curious look, clearly pleased. At the very least, this Uchiha brat had guts. According to Kabuto's intel, he was learning Hotaki Ry Kenjutsu, and his talent wasn't bad. A decent vessel indeed. Still, he'd have to test him with a cursed seal. Not just anyone could be a vessel. While Sasuke burned with frustration, Natsuki, Tenten, and Shino were all feeling the oppressive weight of Orochimaru's killing intent for the first time. It was truly overwhelming. Thankfully, Tenten and Shino were both skilled enough to withstand it. Among the other examinees, only a handful like Neji and Gaara were still conscious. The division in ability was stark. As for Kabuto, no one knew where he'd gone. The sound trio were trembling, but their gazes toward Orochimaru held awe and reverence, clearly ready to assist at any moment. TCH. So annoying. Where is the Hokage already? Shino whispered, Natsuki, he's strong. Don't underestimate him. Tenten agreed. Maybe the three of us should focus on stalling him. Once the Hokage arrives, we'll be okay. Orochimaru is just too dangerous. We can't beat him. I know. I don't think we can win either, Natsuki said. Unless I use my trump card, or open the sixth gate of Hachiman Tonk. But he had no intention of doing that, not yet. His goal wasn't to win, it was to drive Orochimaru away. So long as he kept Tenten and the others safe, that was enough. And his performance so far might have already drawn enough attention. As long as Hiruzen was still alive, it was better not to reveal too much. Suddenly. Don't interfere. Let me handle this. The voice came from behind. Everyone turned in surprise. Anko, who had been suffering moments ago, had suddenly stood up and stepped forward, placing herself in front of Natsuki and the others. Tenten quickly protested, Anko-sensei, it's too dangerous. We should work together and hold him off. Just wait until the Hokage gets here. Shino nodded. Anko-sensei, don't act recklessly. But Anko shook her head. You don't understand. The grudge between me and him, it's something you can't imagine. Orochimaru, why did you come back? What's your goal? And why did you abandon me back then? Everyone who didn't know the story stared, sensing something deeper. Orochimaru chuckled darkly. Hee. Anko, my dear student. It's been a long time. Seems you've been doing well in Konoha. But now, are you trying to kill me? That's right. I'm going to kill you. Before anyone could react, Anko rushed forward. With a sudden motion, her arm turned into a snake that lunged to bite Sen'ei Jashu, hidden shadow snake hands. But Orochimaru evaded easily, stretching his tongue out to snare her and yanking her in. Anko used the momentum to tackle him, pinning him to the ground. Her left hand grabbed his right wrist, and with a kunao, she pinned both their hands into the dirt. Ha, got you. Orochimaru, let's die together. Eyes crazed, Anko prepared to use her forbidden jutsu for mutual destruction. Nin, Shasai, ninja art, twin snakes mutual death. But the Orochimaru beneath her dissolved into mud. A clone. The real Orochimaru was behind her. Tisk tisk. A special Jainin from Konoha, and you still use the same forbidden technique I taught you? Anko, my dear student, you really are unworthy. That's why I abandoned you. His words hit her like a knife to the heart. Then, Orochimaru activated the cursed seal, causing Anko to collapse in agony, completely unable to resist. He was just about to continue. Crackle. Suddenly, the sound of electricity echoed behind him. Natsuki reappeared, swinging a cracked long sword. Orochimaru instinctively blocked with the Kusanagi sword. But the damaged blade intentionally broke apart mid-swing, slipping around the block, and its fragments linked by chakra lashed toward Orochimaru's head. A feint, then a slicing strike. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed in surprise. He dodged just in time by tilting his head, but the blade extended again, the fragments realigning and striking once more. This was Natsuki's custom-forged ninja blade Kairoha, blade shard, finally unveiled. While Orochimaru was occupied, Tenten used her Ryugan stretching sword to transform it into 3 dragon heads and retrieve Anko from his grasp. Orochimaru's voice rang out from his severed head. He, fascinating. Konoha's new generation is so delightful. I'm really tempted to take all of you back for my experiments. The severed head began to open its mouth. Orochimaru emerged again, crawling out unscathed. Damn that Dajiri Kawarimi no Jutsu, Great Serpent Substitute Technique. It really makes him seem immortal. Too bad Natsuki wasn't skilled in Genjutsu. If he could trap Orochimaru's incomplete soul in a powerful illusion, that would have been ideal. Unfortunately, time's up. The third Hokage is almost here. Well then, everyone, goodbye. Poof. Orochimaru vanished in a puff of smoke. Natsuki didn't relax. Neji. Shino. Is he really gone? Neji had already activated his Byakugan and scanned the area. After exchanging a look with Shino, both shook their heads. He's really gone, Shino confirmed. I secretly planted a female insect on him, but I've lost the signal. Kaiba spoke up weakly, Akamaru can't pick up his scent either. It's like he just vanished. This guy's terrifying. His body was still trembling from earlier. The sheer killing intent had nearly knocked him out. Hinata had fainted. There was nothing anyone could do about that. Still, everyone breathed a deep sigh of relief. Orochimaru was gone. If he'd stayed any longer, things might have turned tragic. Someone could have died like Anko, who had been ready to sacrifice herself. Natsuki and Tenten exchanged a glance and silently began putting away their ninja tools. Chapter 96. At that moment, the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen, hurried over with several genin in tow. Is everyone all right? Where is Orochimaru? His face was grave as he scanned the scene, but Orochimaru was nowhere to be seen. Several examinees lay on the ground, and many others looked like they had experienced severe shock. The worst off appeared to be Anko. Kakashi, Kurane, Aoba, Asuma, and Guy had also arrived, rushing to the front. Once they confirmed that their students were safe, they breathed a sigh of relief and went to check on Anko. Thankfully, it was just her curse mark acting up. The wound on her hand was minor in comparison. What exactly happened here? Hiruzen immediately questioned the proctors present. In response, they quickly explained everything. That included how Natsuki had discovered Orochimaru, engaged in an intense fight with him, with support from Tenten and Shino. Anko had even attempted to fight to the death against him. As for the rest of the examinees, they were mostly overwhelmed by Orochimaru's killing intent. While it wasn't a physical injury, some of them might carry psychological scars. Regardless, today's exam couldn't continue. Once Hiruzen confirmed that there were no casualties, he finally relaxed and immediately arranged for medical nin to treat the unconscious or frightened examinees. Anko was also slowly recovering, though she still appeared dazed. Hiruzen didn't press her for answers, simply telling her to rest. Then Hiruzen looked at Natsuki with a smile of satisfaction. Natsuki, I didn't expect you to have grown this much already. I remember when you first came to me with those ninja card designs, I could already tell your future wouldn't be ordinary. Who would have thought, at just 12 years old, you'd already shine so brightly? Yeah, right. You old schemer, quit the act. Back then, I only went to see you to confirm some details about the cards. If those cards hadn't been ninja-related, do you really think I would have bothered to come to you? I was hiding my strength so well at the time, how could you possibly tell I was special? If I hadn't started revealing parts of my power, you probably wouldn't have paid me any mind. Natsuki silently ranted, but on the surface, he looked bashful. Thank you for the compliment, Hokage-sama. It was mostly luck. Haha, no, this isn't luck. It's real strength. Hiruzen clearly acknowledged Natsuki's power. To be able to hold his own against Orochimaru was not something luck alone could achieve. Without solid skills, he wouldn't have lasted more than a few exchanges. Just look at the other proctors, or even Anko, a Takubitsu genin. Against Orochimaru, they didn't stand a chance at all, not even enough to hold him back. But Natsuki did it. If that doesn't count as strength, what does? By the way, how did you recognize Orochimaru? Hiruzen asked curiously. Oh, just instinct, Natsuki replied seriously. Back when I was making the cards, I studied a lot of historic figures and learned quite a bit about Orochimaru, including his connection to Anko-sensei. Just now, when the female grass nin disguised as him teased Anko-sensei, something felt off in his eyes. Instinctively, the name Orochimaru popped into my head, and I acted without thinking. I see. Very perceptive, that's an essential trait for an excellent ninja. Hiruzen gave him a nod of approval. Even though Natsuki's explanation had some holes, the grass nin in question was definitely Orochimaru. Maybe Natsuki's instincts really were just that sharp. Most importantly, Natsuki had backed it up with strength. At the very least, he had Takubitsu genin level ability. Possibly even stronger than Anko. Not to mention, he'd learned Kakashi's Kenjutsu and Guy's Hachiman Tonk, 8 Gates technique. That demanded attention. Strength earns respect. And in Hiruzen's eyes, Natsuki, still a youth of Konoha, represented the village's future. As long as he remained loyal, nothing else mattered. Also, Tenten, his little girlfriend, was quite skilled herself. Her talent in handling ninja tools was impressive, and with special tools, she could unleash remarkable combat potential. She'd even helped delay Orochimaru a bit. Compared to the other examinees, her performance was outstanding. Shino from the Aberame clan and the Uchiha orphan also did well. Konoha's new generation was showing great promise. It was a huge blessing for the village. Thinking this, Hiruzen's originally tense mood lightened significantly. He may have once been a shady politician, but in these later years of his life, all he wanted was for Konoha to have more strong seedlings, and to reach the peak of the ninja world again. Ahem. Alright, you've all been through a lot today. You must be exhausted. Go home and rest. As for the exam, we'll notify you later. With that, Hiruzen dismissed everyone. However, the 15 young genin were pulled aside by a few teachers for some final instructions. Guy beamed as he ruffled Natsuki and Tenten's hair. You two little rascals, you did amazingly. I'm proud of you. Kurane added, Shino did great too. Kakashi shrugged. Well, anyone who didn't pass out from that killing intent is already doing pretty well. Sasuke could still move pretty impressive. But Natsuki, you're a bit beyond expectations. You've already mastered Kenjutsu to that level, you're Jonin material. Aoba's lucky to have such a student. Yamashiro Aoba couldn't hide his grin but still tried to act humble. I didn't really teach him much. It's mainly you two Kakashi and Guy who brought him up. Yet, you two might have trained him. But he's still my student. And I'm proud. The teachers continued to compete over whose student was better. Only Asuma stayed quiet. What could he say? His 3 students didn't faint, sure, but they were also the first to run away. When they saw Natsuki fighting Orochimaru, they didn't even consider helping, they just hid and peeked out from behind cover. What could Asuma say? Natsuki and the others just stood there, listening to the teachers bicker. It was kind of exhausting. Luckily, the teachers had more pressing matters to attend to. Orochimaru's invasion was a serious issue, they needed to investigate it immediately. Without that, the exams couldn't continue. We should get going too. Everyone head home and get some rest, Natsuki said, reminding his friends to stay alert. Then he took Tenten's hand, and the two of them left together. However, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. He turned around and sure enough, it was Gaara. Those panda eyes of his were practically glowing with bloodlust and anticipation. Natsuki didn't think much of it. Gaara wasn't mentally stable these days. He was obsessed with killing people, especially the strong ones. Clearly, Natsuki's performance had caught his eye. Gaara's hands were already itching to kill. Chapter 97. Hey! You're Natsuki, right? The sudden voice made Natsuki blink in confusion, and he quickly identified the speaker as Kanker standing beside Gaara. So it was this guy who spoke up. Naturally, his friends who were about to leave also paused, turning back instinctively to see what this Suna shinobi wanted. Kanker continued, that sword you just used, the one that cracked and reformed, what is it? Oh ho, fishing for intel? That's pretty bold. Asking the person directly in front of everyone? Clearly, Natsuki's performance had unsettled the Sunanin. He was probably worried Natsuki would mess up their original plans. But Natsuki didn't care. He casually replied, that's the motto Senran, demonic blade, 1,000 edges. Forged from over 1,000 chakra shards, each shard is linked by chakra. With control over the chakra, I can split or reassemble the blade at will. It can stretch, shrink, or act like 1,000 flying projectiles. Very versatile. Satisfied with that explanation, you puppet master Kanker, hiding behind your mummy bandages. Kanker's expression changed in surprise. He instinctively gripped the bandaged mummy strapped to his back. He originally wanted to probe Natsuki for some information, and figured the worst that would happen was that Natsuki wouldn't answer. But if he did answer, he'd score some intel. He didn't expect Natsuki to actually give an answer, and then expose his identity in the process. The surrounding friends and still present examinees all turned to look at the bandaged mummy on Kanker's back. Some even grinned mischievously. Kanker's face went dark. Even Gaara couldn't help but curse, idiot. Luckily, no one said more on the subject and soon returned their focus to Natsuki. They remembered the image of Natsuki using that bizarre sword bypassing Orochimaru's guard and nearly decapitating him. Everyone got goosebumps. The motto Senran, hey? A truly unique weapon, almost impossible to block. With Natsuki already being so strong, and now wielding such an unconventional weapon, even Orochimaru suffered a loss. What chance did they stand? This thought alone made some examinees, who were already shaken by Orochimaru's presence, start seriously considering quitting the exam. It was just too much pressure. Natsuki didn't waste any more time. He waved again to his friends, then left hand in hand with Tenten. Meanwhile, the name Mato Senran spread rapidly throughout Konoha. Some gossip mongers even gave Natsuki a new nickname, Konoha's Demonic Blade. It was inspired by the name White Fang of Konoha. Since Natsuki had studied the White Fang's kenjutsu and wielded such a mystical blade, Konoha no Mad felt like a fitting title. Naturally, this brought back stories about the White Fang. Many village elders still felt guilt over the public backlash that had driven the White Fang to suicide, causing the loss of a powerful asset and arguably triggering Konoha's slow decline. Fortunately, with Root disbanded, no one was manipulating public opinion now. The rumors stayed positive. Danzo probably wouldn't care enough to pick a fight with a dead man. Some even ran to Tenten's family's ninja tool shop, pestering her parents to add the White Fang as a character in the ninja card game. It gave the poor shopkeepers a headache. Natsuki didn't concern himself with any of this. The man was long dead. No amount of talk could change anything. As for the Chunin exams, they would be delayed. All of Konoha needed a thorough sweep to ensure Orochimaru wasn't hiding somewhere. Only then could the exam resume. But such a search couldn't be done quickly, it would take days. During this time, missions were also on hold. Which meant, more training. Rainya was dragged into extra practice by Aoba. Even Megumi didn't go to the hospital. She joined the training as well. But the girl had become rather anxious. She seemed upset about not being able to help earlier. She had studied medical ninjutsu but hadn't even been able to identify the source of Anko's pain during the incident. It left her deeply frustrated. In truth, it wasn't her fault. The cursed seal placed by Orochimaru wasn't something a normal medic nin could handle. Even Kakashi could only suppress it with a forced sealing technique. Still, Megumi remained emotionally shaken. Rainya had tried to comfort her, but failed. So he turned to Natsuki for help. "Boss, I'm begging you. You're so amazing, you've gotta help cheer up Megumi. She's super down, and if this keeps up, it's going to be bad. You're our team leader, after all. You? Her boyfriend, and you can't do it. And now I have to." Natsuki rolled his eyes in disbelief. Still, he agreed. Megumi was part of Team 9, and they'd be entering the Forest of Death together. If she stayed like this, it could be dangerous for her and the whole squad. So Natsuki waited until Aoba was busy training Rainya and called Megumi over alone. He handed her a skewer of dango. Supposedly, sweets help calm people down. "Thanks, boss," Megumi murmured. She took a bite, and the sweet taste lit up her expression just a little. "Megumi," Natsuki said gently. "What's wrong? You've been off lately. That's not good. I know you're strong, you're the type who wants to handle everything on her own. But sometimes, talking to a friend helps. I know you didn't want Rainya to worry, which is why you didn't talk to him. But you can talk to me, right? I'm your leader, I can give you good advice." Megumi hesitated, then, seeing that Rainya was far away and wouldn't overhear, she finally began to speak, her voice a little shaky. "Boss, I feel useless." "Why do you say that?" Her expression dimmed. "Back then, I couldn't help at all. I was so scared of Orochimaru, and I couldn't even treat Anko-sensei properly. I've been learning medical ninjutsu, but at that moment, I couldn't do anything. I'm just useless." So that's what it was. People always say girls are emotional, and clearly, that's true. But honestly, it wasn't just Megumi. Most people were frozen with fear during that confrontation. Some even fainted. Even someone like Sasuke, who calls himself a genius, was trembling like a leaf. So really, her reaction was completely understandable. But Megumi didn't think so. She wasn't like Sakura, who could just brush things off. Megumi couldn't accept being useless. She could accept being weak. But not being useless. She had been the only one to step up and try to treat Anko. Yet she couldn't even diagnose the condition. Her medical ninjutsu had felt meaningless. That's what hit her so hard. This silly girl, no one blamed her, yet she blamed herself so harshly. But that's exactly what makes her such a kind, compassionate, and hard-working person. Rainya is one lucky guy. Chapter 98. Natsuki smiled and patiently explained, "Megumi, you're only thinking this way because you don't understand the situation. Anko-sensei was once Orochimaru's student. He later abandoned her and placed a cursed seal on her. When it activates, it causes unbearable pain. Even the Konoha hospital and the Hokage himself can't do anything about it. So why are you blaming yourself, a young girl, for not being able to help? Megumi looked up, eyes wide with surprise. Is that true? Of course. When have I ever lied to you? Natsuki answered with a completely matter-of-fact tone. Besides, you did help. When so many people stood by and watched, only you and Rainier ran to support Anko-sensei and tried to heal her. That already puts you ahead of most people. Megumi took a deep breath, and her expression seemed to ease. But she still seemed conflicted. Boss, I really want to help. I don't want to be someone useless. Natsuki scratched his chin, looking thoughtful. I'd love to help you get stronger, but power doesn't come overnight. Still, there are other ways to help. You already know medical ninjutsu, which is huge. But, maybe what you need now is a summon beast. Summon beasts, that was the only short-term way Natsuki could think of that might actually increase her utility. Real power UPS take time. It's not something you can just flip a switch on. Megumi's medical skills were already impressive. She'd even learned Shinjutsu, mystical palm technique. From Natsuki's perspective, she could already offer a lot of support. But clearly, she didn't think so. Which meant the only idea that might work now, was summoning. Summon beast. Megumi's eyes lit up. Yet, if I can contract with a useful summon beast, I'll be able to contribute more, right? I'll be helpful. Perfect. The girl's spirit was coming back. Natsuki encouraged her further. Tenten has a summoning scroll for the giant mountain eagles. They're incredibly useful. Small ones can deliver messages, big ones can carry people in flight. But they're proud creatures, hard to tame. Megumi thought about it for a moment, then shook her head. I want to help, but contracting the same summons as you would feel kind of redundant. Are there any others? Natsuki looked up at the sky. Well, the only other one I can think of is Kakashi-senpai's ninja hounds. Ninkan? Kakashi-sensei's. He has 8 ninja dogs. They understand human speech and have an extraordinary sense of smell. They're perfect for tracking and locating people even across vast distances. Honestly, I'm still worried Orochimaru hasn't left Konoha. Once we enter the Forest of Death, I'm afraid something might happen to Tenten or the others. If you had tracking support to help locate teammates, I'd be much more at ease. Then I'll contract the ninja dogs, boss. Megumi's eyes gleamed. Actually, I really like dogs. And if their tracking abilities can help you, then I want to do it. Seeing her like that, Natsuki finally relaxed. That's the spirit. Then let's go ask Kakashi-senpai to let you contract the Ninkan. The good thing is, there's no limit to the number of summon contracts. So later, if you also want to summon the giant mountain eagles or others, that's totally fine too. With Megumi in good spirits again, Rainier was overjoyed. He'd known boss would have a way, and look, didn't take long for Megumi to bounce back thanks to him. When he heard Megumi wanted to contract Kakashi's summons, he immediately voiced his support and insisted on tagging along to ask Kakashi together. Megumi also felt a little guilty, knowing her boyfriend had been worried about her. She couldn't help but reach out and squeeze his hand. Yamashiro Aoba groaned, drenched in that couple's sugary affection, and quickly said, I think Kakashi is currently training his students. Given the time, he's probably eating lunch at Ichiraku Ramen. Let's head over. Sure enough, they found Kakashi at Ichiraku Ramen. Team 7 was there too. Still, as delicious as ramen is, eating it every day? With that kind of training load, ramen alone won't cut it. Yo! Kakashi, there you are. Aoba raised a hand in greeting. My students got something to ask you. Kakashi waved lazily, then turned to Natsuki. Natsuki? What's up? Natsuki was about to speak when Megumi stepped forward. Boss, let me do it myself. You've already helped me enough. I can't keep relying on you. Hearing that, Natsuki closed his mouth and nodded in approval. When asking for help, you should do it properly. Sure, Natsuki could have said it and guaranteed success, but Megumi didn't want that. She wanted to become someone useful, and for that, she had to take responsibility and speak for herself. Kakashi-sensei. Megumi bowed deeply. I want to contract your Ninkan. I want to be someone who can help others. But I'm not strong enough yet. Even my medical ninjutsu still needs work. But I don't want to be useless anymore. Boss told me your Ninkan have excellent tracking abilities, and I'd like to form a contract with them. Please, Kakashi-sensei. Team 7 was visibly surprised. Sasuke gave a subtle nod. He remembered Megumi. She had once been one of his fan club members. But after being assigned to Team 9, she'd found love and was steadily growing stronger. Most admirable was her heart. She wasn't satisfied with being average. She wanted to be useful, and she was willing to work hard for it. That was far more praiseworthy than a certain someone from their own team. Sakura clenched her fists and stared deeply at Megumi. Back in the academy, she had been top of the class in written exams and wasn't bad at physical training either. She'd never seen Megumi as competition. But since becoming an official genin, Megumi had clearly surpassed her, improving her strength, learning medical ninjutsu, and now even requesting to contract with Kakashi-sensei's Ninken. Megumi was truly excelling not just in action, but also in spirit. Compared to that, Sakura felt so useless. Whenever danger struck, it was always Sasuke and Naruto rushing forward. She just stood there helplessly. Even when they were injured, all she could do was basic first aid. So useless. She had asked Kakashi-sensei to increase her training. She was trying. But her progress was painfully slow. She bit her lip in frustration, not knowing what else she could do. Naruto, meanwhile, was just watching with his usual carefree grin. Although he was surprised Megumi came to ask Kakashi for a summon contract, he didn't think much of it. That's just how he was, simple and straightforward. Chapter 99. Kakashi always had a soft spot for sincere, motivated kids. After hearing Megumi's heartfelt plea, even his single visible eye seemed to smile. He quickly finished his ramen and pulled out a summoning contract scroll. Come on, sign your name here. Thank you so much, Kakashi-sensei. Megumi hadn't expected Kakashi to agree so easily. She thought it was her sincerity that had moved him, and she wasn't wrong. If Natsuki had been the one asking, Kakashi might have joked around or acted aloof. But it was indeed Megumi's sincerity that earned her this chance. When she opened the scroll, she noticed the last two names were Hotaki Sakumo and Hotaki Kakashi. But she didn't ask any questions, she simply bit her finger and wrote her name in blood. After Kakashi put the scroll away, he began forming hand seals. Watch closely. The seals go like this. Megumi mimicked the hand signs and slammed her palm on the ground. Kokiyos no Jutsu. Summoning technique. Poof. A small dog appeared in a puff of smoke, slightly scruffy looking but somehow charming. It was none other than Pakun, the most frequently seen ninja hound. Kakashi, what did you summon me for this time? Another mission? Pakun asked in his usual flat tone, glancing around with his deadpan expression. It wasn't me, Kakashi replied, pointing at Megumi. She summoned you. Hello, Pakun. I'm Cat Megumi. I just signed the contract scroll, and I summoned you for the first time. I heard you have amazing tracking skills, please take care of me in the future. Megumi's face lit up with joy. She hadn't expected her first summoning to succeed. Yamashiro Aoba gave her a thumbs up. Megumi's got talent succeeded on the first try. Rainya puffed up proudly. Of course. Look who her boyfriend is. Everyone else rolled their eyes. What does her talent have to do with who she's dating? What a show-off. Pakun, however, wasn't surprised. Seeing Megumi's bright, genuine smile, he found her quite likable. He had no issues with kind-hearted girls like her. Then I'll call you Megumi too. Megumi, let's work well together. Pakun, is there something you like to eat? I'll buy it for you, Megumi asked enthusiastically, eager to build a good relationship from the start so he'd be more willing to help her later. Oh? Then get me some high-quality dog food. I know which store in Konoha has the best. You're very considerate, Megumi. I'll even let you squish my paw pads. Wow! They're so soft and squishy, so cute. Hee, aren't they? The two got along instantly, chatting happily. Kakashi scratched his head awkwardly, he'd never spoiled Pakun like that before. But maybe this wasn't so bad. At least Pakun wouldn't be complaining anymore. Sakura, watching the scene, clenched her fists again. She now felt completely overshadowed by Megumi. She finally understood this wasn't the academy anymore. If she didn't improve fast, she really would be useless. Then, Pakun suddenly looked in her direction. I just smelled something familiar. Oh. Pink-haired girl, you have good taste. You're using the same shampoo as me. But my fur's still softer. Sakura turned to stone. Her taste was the same as a dog's. Devastating blow. Natsuki just had to add, not just the shampoo, even your forehead protectors in the same spot. Pakun nodded sagely. Indeed, she has excellent taste. I do not want to have the same taste as a dog. Sakura screamed in her head. She was on the verge of losing it. But she managed to hold back, because, well, from everyone else's perspective, it was true. She felt tainted now. Would Sasuke-kun look down on her? Not that Sasuke really cared. In fact, he barely spared her a thought. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. Megumi hugged Pakun happily, full of gratitude. I don't even know how to repay you. Why don't I treat everyone to lunch? Kakashi waved her off. No need. We teachers love seeing students like you who are eager to improve. Save your money to buy Pakun some good dog food. He's always complaining about mine. Pakun nodded. Exactly. Kakashi's just a single guy, no need to save his money. Better spend it on me. Kakashi's face darkened. This dog's got a new owner now and suddenly thinks he can say whatever he wants. Megumi was a little embarrassed but still expressed her thanks again. Then she led Team 9 toward the market, their next stop, the pet food store. Kakashi watched them leave, then suddenly turned toward Sakura. He'd clearly noticed something off about her. Sakura, seeing a former classmate you once looked down on suddenly grow so much feels tough, hey. Sakura clenched her fists so hard her nails dug into her palms. Kakashi-sensei. I really felt what Megumi said. I don't want to be useless anymore. I want to be able to help Sasuke-kun and Naruto. What should I do? Kakashi nodded, satisfied. Knowing your own shortcomings and being frustrated about them, that's part of growth. Here's a suggestion, you have excellent chakra control. Why not follow Megumi's path and start learning medical ninjutsu? That way, even if Sasuke or Naruto get hurt, you can heal them. Sakura nodded firmly. All right. I'll do it. Sasuke let out a quiet humph. At least she wasn't totally useless. If Sakura had stayed weak, he, Uchiha Sasuke, wouldn't have accepted such a teammate. Bonds may be important, but no one wants a comrade who just drags them down. Naruto, on the other hand, shouted with joy, Sakura's so smart. If she learns medical ninjutsu, she'll be better than Megumi for sure. Sakura ignored him completely, she didn't take Naruto seriously at all. Back with Team 9, Megumi had bought Pakun a generous supply of premium dog food, which delighted him. He even promised to help her with training, mainly to demonstrate his tracking skills. After just one session, Megumi realized Pakun wasn't just good at tracking, he was smart. He could analyze situations, weigh pros and cons, and even devise tactics. She was amazed. Pakun, since you're the leader of the 8 ninja dogs, does that mean you can command the others? Of course. The others have great noses too, but none of them are as sharp or as smart as me. Naturally, I lead them. Don't worry, Megumi. When it comes to tracking, leave it to me. Our Pakun is the best. Chapter 100. While Megumi was happily chatting with Pakun, and Rainya stood by watching his girlfriend with a silly smile on his face, Natsuki took the opportunity to pull Yamashiro Aoba aside. Aoba-sensei, would it be possible for you to introduce me to your 2 teammates? My teammates? You mean Raid and Genma? Why the sudden interest? Aoba asked, puzzled. Hehe, I heard they once served as the 4th Hokage's personal guards. Natsuki lowered his voice, I've read a lot about the 4th's accomplishments. His Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, is famous for its unmatched speed. I figure your 2 teammates must have learned it too. I wanted to ask if you could get them to teach me. Aoba's expression changed slightly, he was impressed once again. You sure know a lot and you've got a sharp eye. This wasn't just a casual compliment. Given Natsuki's current abilities, the praise was well earned. Natsuki clearly had a wide range of knowledge, whether it was about Might-Do, Sakumo, or the 4th Hokage, and he always seemed to be aiming for high-level techniques, Hachiman Tonk, 8 Gates technique, Hataki Ry Kenjutsu, Hataki-style Kenjutsu, and now even the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Most people wouldn't even know where to learn these techniques, even if they had heard of them. But Natsuki always seemed to have a lead. It was uncanny. Natsuki chuckled, well, I do have good taste. Otherwise, how would I have ended up with such a cute girlfriend? Aoba rolled his eyes behind his sunglasses. You know that's not what I meant, don't pretend otherwise. Still, he didn't mind this side of Natsuki. As a ninja, one had to do whatever it took to grow stronger. As long as it wasn't immoral, thick skin was no issue. And as a teacher, he was happy to help. Truth be told, he didn't have much left to teach Natsuki. If Natsuki could master the 8 gates and Hotaki swordsmanship, maybe Hiration wasn't beyond him either. Who knows, maybe the student of his would someday surpass the Hokage. Raid and Genma did learn the Hiration no Jutsu, but their talent wasn't quite enough, so they only managed to develop a group version Hiration no Jin, Flying Thunder formation. It's a bit of a downgrade. But your talent's different. You've already mastered the summoning technique, which proves your aptitude for space-time ninjutsu. I'll talk to them and see if they're willing. But ninjutsu like this isn't taught casually. They'll likely test you first, so be prepared. Don't worry, Aoba-sensei. I'm always ready. Bring on the tests. Natsuki grinned. With Aoba agreeing to help, Natsuki was one step closer to mastering the Hiration. He was excited already. That night, Natsuki snuck into Tenten's room under the excuse of sharing good news. He was already a pro at sneaking around. But since both of them were still teenagers in their prime, sharing a bed could be a little distracting. They often found themselves tossing and turning, unable to sleep, struggling to suppress the urge to snuggle closer. It was a sweet kind of torture. The next day, Rainya was dragged away for more special training from Aoba. Megumi, meanwhile, went to help at the hospital. Rumor had it a senior medic was willing to teach her the chakra no mesu, chakra scalpel. As for Natsuki, he was left to roam free. There wasn't much more Aoba could teach him. He'd even passed on a mind-reading technique before, which Natsuki had picked up ridiculously fast. It was a source of both pride and frustration for Aoba. Having an outstanding student was wonderful, but it also came with the pain of being outpaced. So, Aoba told Natsuki to do as he liked and just call him if he needed a sparring partner. Naturally, Natsuki latched onto Tenten and headed to Guy's team instead, where he quickly ended up sparring with Lee and Neji, before eventually challenging Guy himself. The training atmosphere there was intense, probably because of Guy's influence. Guy was a training maniac. He hardly thought about anything besides training. No complications, no distractions. Being around his team made everything feel focused and fulfilling. Both Lee and Neji were battle-hungry types. Frequent matches with them were a great way to accumulate combat experience. And, of course, the best part, his lovely girlfriend Tenten was right there with him. Nothing made Natsuki happier. At the moment, it was Tenten's turn to spar with Lee. To test her taijutsu, she was fighting without her usual ninja tools, and surprisingly, she was holding her own. Guy stood to the side striking flamboyant poses and cheering them on. It was quite a spectacle. Natsuki, meanwhile, drank the water Tenten had brought him and admired her figure as she fought fiercely, strong, graceful, and completely captivating. That's when Neji approached him. Natsuki, can we talk? Natsuki raised an eyebrow but nodded. Sure. What's up? Nothing in particular. I just have some thoughts I don't want to keep buried anymore. I need someone to talk to. Neji's expression was distant, almost melancholic. I've only lost to you among the younger generation. Especially after seeing you stand against someone like Orochimaru. I can't help but feel admiration. I figured, maybe someone like you could understand and offer me advice. I hope you don't mind. Thoughts from the heart? Wait a second, is he about to start ranting about the caged bird seal? Wasn't he saving that dramatic speech for the Chunin exams? Natsuki was surprised, but given how uncharacteristically open Neji was being, he couldn't exactly turn him down. So he nodded. Neji slowly removed his forehead protector, revealing the cursed mark on his forehead. The Hyuga clan has long been divided into the main house and the branch house. To protect the Byakugan from falling into the wrong hands, members of the branch house are branded with the caged bird seal. This forces them to obey the main house and defend the clan's bloodline at all costs. Natsuki nodded silently, continuing to listen. The curse seal ensures that even in death, the Byakugan can't be stolen. In theory, it's a brilliant solution for protecting our jutsu. But over time, the main house grew corrupt. With the ability to control the curse seal and, by extension, the lives of the branch house, they began treating us like servants. Neji's voice darkened. They use the seal to punish us for the slightest disobedience. They send us into danger while they remain safe. Even worse, they scapegoat us when it suits them. My father, he was the younger twin brother of the clan head. But simply because he was born a few minutes later, he was branded as branch house and made to serve. He ended up being used as a body double to die in place of someone else.
Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200 plus audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.
Thanks for listening.